Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hey, how are you?
I like how I'm first in the camera for once.
Well, look, I just thought, you were just a bit fragile about some of the thumbnails I used of you this week, and so I just thought, you know what, I've got to give a little bit back. I'll let you be on the left-hand side of the screen for a change.
You, sir, have a death wish, and don't worry, I am biding my time, and that time is coming this weekend.
Listen, you're only doing my website, my brand, my merch, my new clothing look. You're going to dictate my hairstyle, and you're taking all of my photographs. I don't see how you could possibly exact any revenge on me for making you look silly in the thumbnails.
That crying face. Do you remember Kim Kardashian? She did the crying emoji, and then she started this whole brand called Kimoji over that crying face she did. Do you know what I'm talking
Carly,
about?
have you met me? I have no freaking idea what you are talking about. That is a different language from a different planet.
Guys, help me out in the chat. You know what I'm talking about. I have to do this. Kim Kardashian.
Deny everything. Deny
Crying
everything, chat, if you have
face.
any self-respect.
So Topher has this horrendous habit of just screenshotting the most god-awful photos of me and then putting them in the thumbnail. Do you want people to watch the stream or not?
This is people are watching. Hey, some of those videos get 15,000 views on them. People clearly like you when you're pulling faces.
All right, this is what I'm talking about. Surely you guys know what I'm talking about. Kim Kardashian, this is her crying face, and it became like a thing. And like the Kardashians can only do, she's turned this into a multi-million-dollar business. So she turned herself into like a little cartoon and then sold like an emoji pack that you could add on and and made money off it. She called it like Kimoji or something. This. So you could then use that in your chats, and she made millions off it. So
yeah,
business ideas.
Can we get to Amanda's comment here? My OCD doesn't like the position switch, just so you know. Amanda, OCD is so last year. Well, you've got to get on board the CDO. It's like OCD, but it's in alphabetical order. It's much, much, much better. So yeah,
guys,
just try and catch up, Amanda.
Is take my rightful place at the beginning. I don't know if you've realized I have a job title now.
What was that? What was that you were saying?
How did you do that?
I'm amazing. And I'm very used to StreamYard. I've been using it for years, so I know all the little tricks.
Well, I'm going to boot us off StreamYard next week. I haven't told you this. We're going to use OBS.
What?
Yeah.
Listen, because just when I said you could come in here and change everything, I didn't mean you could come in here and change everything. You like what?
We're going to use OBS because I'm moving the platform for the podcast as well. So still, you guys in the comments, nothing changes. Just changes for us in the back end.
Well, that'll probably be good because StreamYard has decided that it does not like my Facebook page, and having a new platform gives me a chance to connect that up properly, and we might get even more viewers.
And also, like, if we ever want to give you a link, like last week we wanted to share the petition link, I can actually put an overlay on the screen that you guys can click on, and it will take you to that page. Whereas now, like, the best I can do is put a comment in the thread, or once the chat's ended, I put it in the YouTube description box. So it feels a bit clunky. Like, I just want to be able to do cool stuff. And as someone who didn't know any of this stuff 6 months ago, it's been a bit of a curve.
Speaking of cool stuff, good evening, Carls and Topher, says Daniel Brun. I thought I might as well enjoy my evening, even though I'm doing Mindsite inductions. Honestly, Mindsite inductions sound a lot more interesting than an evening with us. But hey, you do you. Carls, when are you releasing your hot sauce?
When am I releasing my hot sauce?
Yeah.
I need someone to help me cook it.
We need a Carl's line of sourdough breads and a Carl's line of hot sauce. Those are, it's like Carl's complete home cooking, just two things. Sourdough bread, hot sauce.
Well, Gordon Ramsay is a billionaire now from all of this cooking, so maybe that's the way to go. Yeah.
There you go. All right. So I don't want to intimidate you. I mean, I know you have a title now. You are the Chief Chaos Merchant. Everybody, can you just in the comments, can you ooh and ah over Carl's little title that she's given herself underneath her name, Chief Chaos Merchant? She offered to give me a name. She offered to give me a name as well, but I am way too intelligent to ever put myself at Carly's mercy to that degree. So jump in the comments and let me know, what should my title be under, just here under my name? There you go. And
Don't hold back.
if she's the chief chaos merchant, you let me know what I ought to be.
Do not hold back, guys. Remember, you're all actually on my side. Topher's just the side piece.
Okay.
So
I know I'm just the eye candy.
You...
I get it. I understand my position in this. I'm the eye candy. But also, I don't know if you know this, Carls, but I'm actually a little bit of a big deal. Because did you know that the Daily Mail UK actually wrote? So this is Daily Mail website that I'm on right now. This is live. You can go to it. They wrote an entire article about me and an interview that I did with a mob called Unemployable Media. Literally, this whole article is about Aussie, that's me, reveals the true meaning behind the lucky country and why most are wrong to think it's a positive phrase. And I kid you not, this entire piece of alleged journalism is literally just lots of photographs of my face. I apologize, everybody. Apparently some random roller skating. That's me.
You look in a pair of denim shorts.
I know, that's me in the front. That's back when I used to work out a lot more, back when I was a dancer. And, you know, it's literally the whole thing. I was gobsmacked when I found this. It is literally just quotes of me all the way through. It's like people can just watch the Unemployables podcast, right? They don't need a Daily Mail UK article.
This is what the Daily Fail has to do now because they can't do journalism themselves. So they go to independent creators and then cover their stuff and put it on their mainstream channels, which again, look at all the advertising. It gives me heart palpitations just looking at that.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm not even showing, if I actually expand this out and show you the full screen, there's even more advertising off to the sides. I compressed the screen specifically to try and reduce how much of that there was. And then again, at the top, it's just everywhere, just ads.
What?
So yeah, I just, I don't want you to feel insecure, Carly, but I just thought you should know that, I'm a bit of a big deal now. They write articles about me.
I love this comment. Mental note, down to people who used to be a dancer without mentioning it wasn't at a strip club.
Yeah.
Anyone got some dollars?
I will say I was very, very popular in Fitzroy. Make of that what you will.
I actually need bleach to scrub my brain. That was too much.
That would probably increase your IQ. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on. You made that easy. Yeah, you made that easy. You can't complain about that. All right. What are we talking about tonight?
Well, lots of things. I want to talk a lot about managed decline. It seems to be a bit of a topic that's fluffing everyone's feathers. We have the Chief Productivity Summit, or otherwise known as the Unproductivity Summit, which basically was just all discussions around how to tax us more.
Yes, it was.
We have proposed changes to the building code, of which there will be none. And I have some stories to tell you about house hunting in a minute too.
Okay.
The housing crisis, because, that's just inevitable. And our slippery slope down to Venezuela. And how we are mimicking a lot of
then.
Cheery show. Always. We're very optimistic on the show.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you guys have all got your drinks because high chance that we will say the word Venezuela and Masters. If you're not dead yet, you will be.
Yep. Your liver will be about as happy as if you were eating beef Wellington in one thaggy.
She was getting her victim impact statements read to her today.
Oh, yes.
Did you pay any attention to that?
No, none. I've paid no attention to the entire trial. I don't understand why people get captured by this stuff.
No, she's guilty as sin. She's dodgy as. So actually,
I don't
think we've talked about this. So This is worth knowing because I often see this when I read our comments because, if you're not in the legal system, you don't know how it works. Makes sense.
Right.
And I know that when it comes to you being charged for a case, right? Like, so attempted murder and murder, they can only admit evidence that supports that particular charge for that particular person. They can't give you other evidence that substantiates other crimes. And because you don't want to prejudice the jury. So what I thought was really interesting with that whole case, Erin had tried to kill her ex-husband multiple times. And he had part of his bowel removed. He had been in hospital quite a few times. So I think it was like 4 times she tried to poison him with different meals. And then that was actually why he didn't go to the lunch where the other people died.
Wow.
And so when that all happened and she was charged, They did also have attempted murder for the husband, but they decided to drop those charges because they wanted to concentrate on the 3 murder charges and the attempted murder.
Sure.
So that meant that there's all this, key evidence that got admitted from the trial. So how she had done all this research into poisons. She had a book on poisoning about how to put cyanide into food. What else did she have? She had all these like extra devices. Well, it was so much more interesting than, she cooked beef Wellington. Like, this woman's a psycho, literal psycho.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
So
Patrick, welcome.
Anyway, welcome, Patrick.
By the way, Carl, do you need to talk about this?
Oh, yeah. So we have a little QR code there.
What are you pointing? Why are you pointing? It's next. There. Point the other way. It's next to me.
I'm looking at it. It's that way.
Honestly, Apple users, I tell you.
So we have a new little thing. We're trying some new software because, as I mentioned, we're going to move. We use StreamYard, and we're going to move to OBS because it's going to give us a lot more different things that we can do for the podcast moving forward. But I've set up like a little buy us a coffee button. Reason being, we love the super chats and we're very grateful for the super chats. But I didn't know that Apple and Google Play Store take a cut too. Because, when someone gives us a massive super chat, we're like, wow, thank you very much. I didn't realize we were also making a donation to Apple and Google Play Store.
Well, you're only making a donation to Apple if you're dumb enough to use Apple products and use Apple Pay when you make the super chat. Otherwise, you're just paying YouTube. But yes, you're still paying YouTube.
But they also do it for the Google Play Store. So there you go.
Sure.
Android users beware. If you use Google Pay or Apple Pay, I think it's like a 20% cut. I didn't know that. Like, Apple's worth $1 trillion. Do they need any more?
Yeah, that's why they're worth $1 trillion, is because they take a cut of absolutely everything.
They're lucky they make nice looking products. I might be in that cult.
Yeah, you are a serial cult member. We've talked at length about the whole CrossFit thing. You are, yes, without question. And Apple would have to be one of the most expensive cults, second only to the Scientology.
Oh, I haven't joined that one yet. Maybe I should.
Yeah, we'll just try and complete the whole set,
So I want to tell you a story about the building code. We've talked about site inspections a few times, right? The whole good from far from good. I love him.
Yes.
Don't actually know his name, but him.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you guys haven't watched his YouTube, it's called Site Inspections. It's great. And, he goes around and looks at all these dodgy builds. And when we watch it, I know growing up, there was always the odd crappy builder, right? And Current Affair would bail him up and he'd be like, oh, get out of my face. We've all seen that. I didn't realize how prolific it was, and particularly around all of these townhouses that are being built up. So, for example, we are getting, someone's already used the Ko-fi button.
Oh.
Oh, wait,
wow. That. Hang on. It actually comes through in like comments and stuff.
Yeah. From someone. Thank you, someone.
From Nate.
No, Nate, that's another one. Oh, so are you pressing buttons?
No,
right,
I did not. So this one.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to press.
And then from someone anonymously did it as well. There you go.
And then we got one from Melissa.
Okay, thank you.
It works. Cool. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for confirming
hoping that would work, and it does. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
So site inspections goes to all these new builds, and where I'm living around Bayside area, particularly on the Nepean Highway, all of those I used to call Bentley the grandparents' suburb, because that's where all the grandparents lived in Cheltenham. Big front yard, massive backyard, single home blocks. They're all being knocked down, and they're building 4, 5, 6 townhouses if they can. And so I think I said already, G and I have to leave this house because the landlord wants it back, which is very frustrating, especially when we're moving to Noosa. So it's like, whatever. Anyway, my life story is just difficult. By the way, tangent of the podcast.
Yeah.
I may be the bad luck in the relationship.
Tangent time. Sorry, you can't cut across the song. I know you wanted to give us a sob story about how you're bad luck and all that.
Go again.
I need room for my song. Okay?
Go again.
No, I've done it now. No, the moment's passed. Just don't disrespect the song. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Don't disrespect the song.
Where was my tangent? Oh, I'm the bad luck, right? So we moved from I moved from Hampton into our house here with G. 2 weeks later, we get robbed. Bad luck on my behalf. Then a year later, we have to leave the house because the landlord wants to come in. Whose bad luck is that? I don't know. But we also want to move to Parisian Beach. And literally, I kid you not, 2 days ago, someone let off a detonation device and blew up the beach in Parisian Beach. So I don't know if it's me. I am the chaos merchant, but when do you ever hear about someone letting off an explosive device on a beach? And when is it specifically the beach that we want to move to?
How do you blow up a beach? Sorry, the physics of blowing, like you're just shoving dynamite into wet sand, and like you're just going to turn it into smaller grains of sand. I'm having a really hard time understanding what blowing up a beach means. I'm going to
show you it because it literally. Okay, I'm not making this up. This is a real story. So hang on, let me pull it up for you. This happened a couple of days ago, and G just looks at me. He's like, "What is it about you? I have bad luck." So
I need something here. I need something. Come on. Australian Defence Force called the Sunshine Coast Beach after suspicious device was found. Okay.
All right. It's got a video. Hang on. Where did they get the video from? I don't know. Oh God, there's always an ad.
It's got a healthy break advertisement.
An allergy relief, 110 tablets, $39.99 at Chemist Warehouse. For fast, effective, non-drowsy allergy relief with just one tablet a day.
Be right back after this short ad break.
We apologise for this break in transmission.
Oh shit! Sorry. All right.
Normal programming will resume on the other side of all of these ads.
Maybe we should email Expedia and get a cut of this now.
Yeah, I tell you what, we absolutely need to be getting a cut of all these ads. I showed all those ads on their webpage a minute ago. We're playing video ads now.
Watch. Huh? It blew up.
Okay, I stand by my original comment. I mean, there's a lot of beach. There's a little hole. I just, even if that was Bondi on a hot day, it wouldn't have killed more than a half dozen people. And look, let's be honest, there's plenty of them to spare. I don't see the problem here.
I'm just curious why someone was blowing up a beach for no reason. Anyway.
Well, look, as for you being bad luck, you know, I mean, we've started a podcast. It's doing well. We've had over 6,000 downloads of our episode from Wednesday last week. That's like a 5-day-old episode. 6,000 downloads. That's not bad.
That's our biggest downloads in a week. Like that was a big episode. I think we hit 3,000 downloads in 24 hours, which was shocking. Which is
something like
wow.
That. Yeah.
So, Lord Andrew Bruce of House McKinnon's. Can I just say, I appreciate a title like that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Will we see more spicy Carls tonight? Depends how much Topher pisses me off.
I'm doing my best, everybody. I am absolutely doing my best.
Just so you know, my cat's name was Puss Meow Montague III. So I appreciate a long title for a name. I haven't finished my tangent. No, that was my tangent.
I'm going to leave all of those jokes alone. I'm leaving all of those jokes alone. Everybody, I know what you're thinking. I would leave it. Walk away. Back away slowly. Back away slowly. Carls, back to you.
So back to my first tangent, which was talking about houses that we're looking at. So we've gone to this house somewhere like down Bayside Way, and as they do, it always looks relatively nice, but you know they omit the bad stuff. So it's a brand new build. Owner builder. And we go down the back, and it's the back unit. It's a townhouse, 4-bedroom townhouse. And as they always are, the bedrooms, you couldn't swing a cat in there. You know, 2.6 by 2.6.
Poor Puss Meow.
Yeah. I almost said it. G's mother is watching. Careful.
Listen. You're telling me that I'm responsible for making you mad enough to get fired up and get spicy, and yet I have to bite my tongue because G's mum is watching. Like you're asking me to walk a tightrope here.
That's the point. So anyway, we go into this place and there's no living area. So nice enough kitchen, right? You look at the kitchen, you're like, oh yeah, that's nice. So think of like an island bench, and in front of that's the living area. It wasn't even like 900 mil deep. So the real estate agent's like, you can't let this house out. No one will take it. So the owner builder knocks down the wall, like the supporting wall, the house, builds like this little enclave and slaps it on the side of their house and then just literally patches it up. Doesn't finish it, like barely does the drywall, just like it looks like putty, and he's just gone to fix the wall. And where the floating floorboards meet, they go like this. And it literally looks like someone has just put that extra bit of the house on. So, you know, stable. We go upstairs and we're walking on the floating floorboards and we're going like this. And I look at G, I'm like, is that my shoes or is the floor weird? He's like, no, the floor's weird. The floor is literally going like this.
That's actually a common problem. Yeah.
Is it? And then we go downstairs.
Sorry, I think Daniel, who's watching, when they were looking for rentals, I think it was you, Daniel, let me know in the comments, was saying that, they actually had a lot of trouble because they were looking at places and it just felt like you were getting motion sickness just walking across a room.
Yeah. Brand new build, literally brand new build. And so they were renting this out for 4-bedroom, not quite 4-bedroom, but, 4-bedroom townhouse. And I think it was like $950, which is extraordinary for what it was. And then we were looking for the laundry. We're like, where's the laundry? And it's in the Harry Potter cupboard, so under the stairs. But of course, the stairs go like this. And where do you think you're meant to put the washer and dryer?
Yeah, that's been well thought through. Yeah.
Jay and I were just looking at each other going, how did this pass? How do people pass these things? Like,
So no, that makes perfect sense to me because you got to understand, Carly, there are people who think that collapsible water bottles will still collapse after you fill them with water. Right. There are people that don't realize the collapsible bit is for when they're empty. Right. And
people that still vote Labor. So, no.
Look, need we say more? Look,
got a compliment.
Grey Parks, Carl's and Topher, your audience is only going to grow if you keep up unreal banter. It's great to watch two normal human beings. Is that a compliment? I don't know
if we're normal.
Yeah, that's a bit patronizing.
I think, Gray, you're ambitious there, calling us normal, but sure.
I'll let it pass though, because clearly Gray's being nice. Two normal human beings chatting and having good old fashioned fun. Well, that is what this is about, really. That is what this is about.
We've got a question. Do you want to answer this?
Topher, so Rangri Ranga. Topher, I'm confused with some of your views on things. How can you be libertarian Koch brothers like on mass migration and be a Christian? Read what the people of Israel were instructed to do with strangers in their land, and then get back to me. That's my answer on that. Very simple. All right. So Patrick says, no, that is not a common problem. Nope.
Patrick is clearly someone in this. No, as in the wavy floor.
Oh, right. Okay. Maybe. Yeah. Could be.
700,000 to build. That's why it rents for 950. Oh, I don't doubt that, Ben. We're going to talk all about the builder code, and I've learned a lot from watching. I've learned a lot from watching site inspections. And can I tell you a quick story? I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it's one of site inspections video, and I can't remember where they built. It was somewhere in Melbourne, and same thing. They bought off the plan. The house got built. And it's a demo now. So it should have been, they paid 800,000 for it. And now the house has to be demolished. Like, it's unsalvageable. It's that bad, the build.
Yeah, wow.
And they were just sort of telling the whole story. I didn't realize this was going on in Melbourne to this scale, but it seems to be like a prolific problem. And then you look at the building code, which is 2,000 pages long. May as well start with that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
This is going to fire you guys up in the comments. And by the way, if you're a chippy or someone in the construction space, feel free to chime in, because this is outside my wheelhouse.
This is madness. So I was obviously watching all the news coming out of this productivity summit, the how to tax people even more summit. And initially, when you sort of read the first initial reports coming out, you're like, oh, this could actually be good. So the housing minister, Claire O'Neill, I think her name is, talking about the fact that the housing code is too complex. Now, I've done extensive videos on this, and particularly pre the last federal election, comparing the Liberal Party and the Labor Party positions on the building code. And the Liberal Party went into the last election saying, hey, it needs to be simplified. The Labor Party only wanted to add more and more to it. But now here's the Labor housing minister saying, hey, it's actually too complicated. I'm like, oh, maybe I've judged this summit a little too early. Maybe some good could come out of this. Then literally less than 24 hours later, she comes out and says, we're not going to simplify the code. We're just going to freeze it for 4 years. Now, keep in mind, every time they release a new code, it lasts for 3 years. So it's frozen for 3 years, and then they add more to it 3 years later. Then 3 years later, they add more to it 3 years later, right? So freezing it for 4 years, like, she's admitting that it's a problem. She's admitting that it's too complicated. She's admitting that it's phenomenally expensive. And she's refused. She's explicitly ruled out even removing any of the stuff to do with compatibility for solar or for solar batteries, or, you know, there's so many details now where the plumbing has to be upgraded to this and have certain restrictors and flow rates and this and that. The electrical system has to be upgraded to this so that it can get a future solar system or house battery installed. That's sort of already got the core infrastructure for that. Everything from insulation to windows to coatings to, like, it just goes on and on and on. And here she is saying, no, we're not removing anything. Could you be more out of touch with what the problem is?
So I have been listening to G's mum's downstairs, and she listens to the ABC and I don't. Okay. So it's really interesting to hear them talking. And before they get into the article, they preface everything. So I know that the news does this, but because I don't watch ABC frequently, I didn't realize how bad they do it. But before they make the statement, this is G, good from far from good, non-compliant. You got to say it with the accent, otherwise it's not funny. But so the ABC were talking about this, and they had Chalmers on. It was yesterday. We're all downstairs watching it. And I was getting so worked up because you're listening to Chalmers do the whole political tango, like deliberately avoiding the question and saying, oh, but we did this amazing thing and then did that. And the ABC reporter was just softballing him the answers, just, you know, we'll just massage it for you. And the way they do it, they're like, oh, this wonderful idea for housing, right? And so it's already wonderful. They tell you what it is. And that's the 5% thing that we're going to talk about in a second. And just watching that framing from the journalists, I'm like, you guys are trying to sell it to us. It's actually really sadistic, because when you look at these economic policies and you unpack them, you realize this is just setting Australians back more and more. We are voting for our own demise.
Yep. Listen, Tiago Down Under, can I just really strongly suggest, and I would not normally suggest this under any other circumstances, but if you're weighing up between a shipping container and a unused machete disposal bin, the shipping container is going to set you back about $5,000 and have about 10 times the amount of space. Just saying.
Yeah. So we heard a rumor on that. Well, the first rumor was that Vizzy, so Andrew Pratt, who owns Vizzy, got the
Anthony Pratt.
Anthony Pratt, sorry. Yeah. Anthony Pratt. The first rumor was that Anthony Pratt got the award for that, and they did it through Vizzy, and they had a consultant. You might be familiar with the name. I wasn't. But the consultant's name was Daniel Andrews. He was a premier of Victoria at one time, and he was paid $100,000.
It doesn't ring a bell, but to be honest, they've had a lot of consultants in Victoria, so his name's probably just in the mix. Like, I believe they just spent $300 million on consultants for a Victorian treaty, so he's probably just one of those. It's just like, you know, it's just in the churn of it all.
Yeah, and you know, $100,000, that's chump change. You know, that's like
here and there. Like, what's that between friends? Yeah.
Right. So, one Daniel Andrews allegedly was a consultant to Andrew Pratt. Anyway.
Anthony Pratt. Now, I've heard those rumors. Is that actually, are we actually sure yet that that's true? Because I've heard the rumors. Well, I haven't had confirmation.
No, because then our good mate Emily from Voice for Victoria let out a birdie, and her birdies are fairly accurate. And it was done through the prison labour system.
Oh.
So, because if you look at the welding, it's pretty chunky. So actually, I'll pull it up. I'll read it to you. So Emily is usually very accurate with her birdies because they're
hold on. How do you justify the price tag then? I mean, it was already outrageous, but that's 10 times outrageous.
Consultants.
Oh, they had to figure out where they were going to put the bins. That's where the $350,000 per bin went.
Well, no, someone had to come up with the idea. That's at least 20 million.
True. And there was the stickers asking people to remove the packaging.
Politely remove the packaging.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'll read the tip for you guys. If you're not following Voice for Victoria, should be. So I'll just read her quote. Public commentary on topic has been running hot. Machete bins. Memes are racking up thousands of views as people rightfully mock the concept and the crazy price tags. Rumours and freedom of information requests are flying around about who paid for the bins, but birdies don't think it's government-friendly business. Birdie's heard a rumor that the bins have an uncanny resemblance to some of the metal fabrication products that can be purchased as part of the Vic Prison Industries program, aka prison labor. Corrections Vic has a list on their website for what you can purchase, metal work included. Looking past the wild irony of prisoners possibly creating the machete bins, it could be more cost effective than buying them new. Then it's just wondering where the millions are being spent. If it's on ads, ironically, they'll end the same week the kids' social media ban kicks in.
Well, this is the hilarious thing. They're spending money on ads to try and convince people, these criminals, to go and dispose of the bins. Look, I know that advertising works, but I don't think the government's going to get the messaging right on this one. I just have a sneaking suspicion that they're probably going to fail to connect with their. Oh, no, that's right. They'll get consultants to help them. That'll fix it.
No, they'll just make a little TikTok or a little dance. Did you see it went pretty viral? It was this guy doing a this is what I've been looking for. It was no,
haven't seen it. So they need to get Abby to consult on the TikToks. Because she's really good. She's popular. And I don't know if you know this, but she interviewed the Prime Minister, so she'll definitely have clout.
Do you reckon she plugged her butt plugs in between? Excuse me, Anthony, I just got to do a quick ad read. Hi, I'm Abby Chatfield, and I'm going to explain to you how to use a butt plug.
Can you never use that sentence? Do you reckon she plugged her butt plugs? Can you never use that sentence ever again?
That was funny.
I have good mental discipline, and my brain still went places I did not want it to go.
It's all right. I can't say it. Oh, sorry. PG. I had one, and it was funny, but I'll just hold it back.
What? Because G's mum's watching?
Yes.
G's mum, you're ruining the show. Come on. No, you're welcome. Please, we're very happy to have. We have 2 viewers now, G and G's mum. I mean, it's amazing. We just doubled our viewership. It's incredible.
Excuse me, there's 773 people watching right now. What are you talking about?
And without G's mum, there'd be 773 because actually there's 2 of them watching the same TV, so the computer doesn't count them separately. So
you know what? Yeah. If we ever do a proposal document, we can do that fake circulation quote. So what they used to do back in the magazines day is say circulation as opposed to readership. So one person might buy the magazine, but 10 people, particularly in a doctor's surgery or a hairdressing salon, will read the same magazine. So the circulation's at least 10 times.
You've just got to account for the fact that they're going to read it 10 times over the following 20 years. Based on the doctor's surgeries that I go into, you pick up the Reader's Digest and it is from 1996. But 10 people will read it over the following decades.
And it gets sticky and the pages are stuck together? Oh, that's only men's room. Sorry.
I don't know what kind of clinics you're going to, but butt plug sticky magazines. Listen, can we just get back to me dancing in Fitzroy? At least that was clean and suitable for the kids. Come on.
We've got permission to not hold back. So, all right.
Okay. All right.
Let's make G regret his comment.
Let's make G regret being born. Excellent. All right. So look, the building
housing.
Well, yeah, the building code thing I think we've kind of touched on. Like this is madness, and this is what I've talked about before. Governments, their incentive is never to fix problems. Their incentive is to double and triple down on what's not working, and we're watching this play out in real time. So, can I segue to the 5% deposit thing?
Go for it.
Okay, so for those that don't know,
I haven't quite got my head around it though.
Okay, look, I'm not going to explain it in detail because I haven't dived into some of the nuts and bolts on how it's going to work in terms of serviceability and who owns what and all that stuff. But at a high level, what the government has said is they're going to take buyers that only have a 5% deposit, and the government is going to come in as a co-guarantor in some fashion. I'm not clear on the details either. And what that's going to mean is that they can then qualify for this house. They can buy the house that they could not otherwise have been able to afford to buy, or they didn't have the deposit to buy. The problem is that these kinds of ideas, let's help first home buyers, let's help people to afford a house. This is what got us into this mess in the first place. So the very original first homeowners grant came in the 1950s or 60s. It was about $500 at the time, which was a substantial amount of money at the time. It was not indexed to inflation. And so over time, it shrank effectively. It went down to sort of a negligible amount of money. No one really cared about a $500 first homeowners grant. But what's interesting, when I did the research for a video on this a couple of months ago, The year that they introduced this original first homeowners grant was the year in which home ownership peaked in Australia. Now, I'm reasonably sure that that's actually just a coincidence. I don't think that there was a causal relationship between those two, because the $500 grant just wouldn't have been enough to have had that effect. But it's interesting to note that actually at a time when we had the highest home ownership rate, so that's people living in a home that they own or they've got a mortgage on, they're paying off, as opposed to renting. That year was the year they first started helping, and that was the peak. Ever since then, it's been a downhill slide. Now, that downhill slide accelerated massively under John Howard. He and Treasurer Peter Costello came up with a whole bunch of family-friendly policies. They did the baby bonus. They did the massive increase in the first home owners grant, pushing that up to $7,000, which again, we're going back 20 plus years. This was a substantial amount of money. And surprise, surprise, what happened? Well, house prices went up even further. If you make it easier for people to pay more money, they will pay more money, which drives prices higher. You don't fix an affordability crisis by favoring a certain segment of the market, i.e. first home buyers, and making it easier for them to spend even more. That's how you drive even more inflation in the prices, in the values. We see this across the entire freaking economy. This pisses me off so much. I'm going to need a throat lozenge because I'm getting too angry. All right.
Jesus,
this happens.
You've taken my mantle.
It's getting serious now. So take childcare. The government said we need parents to be able to put their children into childcare so that they can go and work, because we want them in the economy, contributing to the GDP so that we look good. So they turn around and say, right, we're going to subsidize childcare centers. We're going to regulate the industry. We're going to control it all. We're going to subsidize it all. Excuse me. I'm going to need you to get angry soon so that my throat has time to recover. And so what happens? Well, now you can't get a childcare place for love nor money. Why? Because they subsidized it, so you're not paying the full commercial rate. You're not paying the actual economic cost of childcare. You're paying less. If you subsidize it, you artificially increase demand, and now there's not enough supply. You can't get a childcare spot for your kid in most of Australia.
It's no different to what they've done with land tax and pushing renters out of the market. Everyone's selling. Renters are now having less and less opportunities.
Everywhere you look, the government has gone in and helped and made things precisely worse. This 5% scheme, this co-ownership scheme with the government, is going to mean that a certain segment of buyers can now afford to pay more, which is going to drive prices even higher. And we're going to be having this conversation in 10 years' time and in 20 years' time. And this has been my point. I got in a lot of trouble recently for saying, hey, everybody, let's fix the problem. Let's not worry about symptoms. Let's fix the problem. You got to understand, it doesn't matter what happens with immigration. It doesn't matter what happens with even population growth from natural birth. If we don't stop the government from eating us alive, it is going to eat us alive. Immigrants or no immigrants, whatever other policy you want to argue about, we are being eaten alive by this dragon called government. They're doing it with a smile on their face and telling us that they're helping us, that they can fix all of our problems, and they are doubling and tripling down on the very things that created these problems in the first place. If we don't stop the dragon, we all get eaten. I don't care about the other issues.
All right, take a break for a second and have a glass of water whilst I read this to you. Have you got some water there? All right. So this is from the ABC's article, because who better to get this from the source? So this is the proposed plan. So it was originally slated for January, and this expanded scheme will now begin October 1st, 2025, a full 3 months early. Crucially, it will remove, their words, not mine, it will remove previous income limits and raise property price caps to reflect real market prices. For example, in Sydney, the eligible price cap jumps from 900,000 to 1.5 million. So hang on, just because I don't quite understand this, I will admit that. So they're basically saying that someone who couldn't afford to save the 10% or the 20% deposit can now pay for a $1.5 million home with 5%. So they're buying above what they can already afford.
So this is a really important point. And this is where the details do matter, and neither you nor I are fully across the details. If they're on the hook for that amount of interest rate, for that amount of like repayments on a monthly basis, if they can afford that, then they can save. They can save a deposit. The people that can service a loan that big can save the damn deposit. If they can't save the deposit, there is no way in hell they can service that loan, which means essentially what's going to happen is if assuming that the government has this scheme allows them to do that anyway, they are going to be trapped. Once you're in this scheme, it's like all welfare. It's a welfare trap. Once you're in, you're not getting out because you're stuck. You can't stand on your own 2 feet. You've been elevated to a point where you can't afford that anymore. Now you're literally going to be dependent on government to aid you in housing for the rest of your life.
So I'm not great with maths, but a 1.5 million mortgage with 5%, your payments would be somewhere around the 8,000-9,000 a month. Am I right there? Depending obviously on interest rates, but you'd be up around there.
Yeah, you'd be up around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're telling me that you can save, so what, a million or $1.5 million, your 5% is what, 50,000? So you save 50,000 and then the government puts in the rest and you're on the hook for almost $9,000-$10,000 per month in mortgage repayments. What I worry with this, and I saw this when I was looking at the social commentary around this idea, because a lot of people are like, this is great, govern me harder, daddy. And I genuinely feel sad for these people because it's very superficial. They see, more homeowners, more people going to get into the market. So, and again, I'm so sorry. I'm going to piss you guys off. But we've talked about this on our Wednesday show before. So if you've only ever watched the lives, you might have missed us talking about this.
Yeah.
People want above their means in Australia. We believe we're entitled to this brand new home with the fancy kitchen and the 900 mil stove and the 2-car garage and the 4 bedrooms and the, Caesar stone bench tops. We don't deserve that. If you go back 30, 40, 50 years ago and looked what first home owners were buying, it wasn't necessarily that they were shitholes. They were just buying within their means. People were living in much smaller dwellings. They were buying that first home. Now, as we know, a lot of those homes have been wiped off the market. We're seeing it. People are redeveloping those properties. A lot of those 2-bedroom units don't exist anymore. Those things that were built around the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so now the entry-level house is that Metricon Simmons home that's been a house land package that's gone up overnight. And people are moving into these homes with mortgages of $800,000 as their first home. This is crazy.
Yeah. This is a direct result of government intervention again. So I released a video literally talking about this today. So they're talking about taxing bedrooms, right? This is a harebrained idea that's come out of Cotality. So Cotality.
Before you go into that.
Okay, sorry, yep.
Before you go into that, a lot of people think that's going to happen. That's not. We just need to, just so you know, guys, there's no way they're doing it.
Yeah. And I talk about this in the video. The purpose of that scare campaign is not so that they can get a bedroom tax. It's so that what they do propose, which is probably land tax, we all accept with enthusiasm because it seems good in comparison, right?
Yeah.
That's the opening gambit to make us grateful for something that's actually really bad for us, but it's not as bad. Anyway, so this came out of it. It was a thought bubble from a thing called Cotality. They used to be known as CoreLogic. For those that are in the real estate industry, you'll know who they are. They basically do house valuations. When you go to the bank and you ask for a loan on your home and they have to decide how much it's worth, CoreLogic, now Cotality, is one of the places they turn to get all that sort of data. So they've got a lot of data. But this particular idea, basically what they're saying is most homes only have 2 people in them, 1 to 3 people in them. Most homes have 3 or 4 bedrooms, therefore there's bedrooms going to waste. Well, a couple of things. Firstly, none of your damn business, right? If I've paid for it, and let's not forget, so I've done the numbers on this, I've done multiple videos on this. By the time someone has paid off their house, they have paid in tax whatever it was that they paid for the house. If you buy a $1 million house now at, let's say, a 90% LVR, so 90% loan on that, then you have to pay that with after-tax income. So over the next 30 years, while you pay off that loan, all the money that goes into the principal and all the money that goes into the interest on that loan is after-tax money. And by the time you've paid off that loan, you will have given the government $1 million or more in tax. To pay off the house that cost you $1 million. So when someone's sitting there debt-free on a 4-bedroom house that cost them, $500,000, however long ago when they bought it, they have spent $500,000 in taxes to own that house. And now some young punk economist wants to come along and say, oh, you shouldn't own that. You haven't paid enough tax. We're going to tax you on that. None of your damn business, government. But secondly, houses have 4 and 5 bedrooms for the same reason that cars have 5, 6, 7, 8 seats, even though normally there's only one person in it. Okay. It's because the fixed costs of building a house have very little to do with the number of bedrooms going in. So, and bedroom might add 5% to the floor area of the house, but it doesn't add 5% to the cost of building the house. It adds a fraction of that amount of money, but it adds a lot to the resale value. So when you build a car, that car has to be properly engineered, properly designed. It has to pass all the safety tests, the emissions tests, has to get, it needs the wheels and the tires and the paint job and the dealer network, and all that stuff has to happen. And that has to happen regardless of the size of the car. A 2-seater sports car needs all of that, just like an 8-seater minivan needs all of that. It's the same with houses. There are a bunch of fixed costs. This thing has to be designed and engineered. It has to get through environmental approvals, has to get the energy efficiency study done. All this stuff, that doesn't really change much, if at all, based on the size of the house. So what's the incentive for a developer? They have to pay all these fixed costs, all these government fees, the application fees and this and that, and go through this whole process. Their incentive is to build the biggest chock-a-block house they can on the smallest possible pieces of land. And there's no margin left for them to do anything else. Their margins now are so thin on land developing, they're not going to leave any money on the table. They're not going to do anything other than cram the biggest thing they possibly can. Now, these days, you can get a 400 square meter block. You can fit a 4-bedroom house on that, single story. And I know that because I lived in one. I rented one out in office, a beautiful home, actually. 4-bedroom house on a 400 square meter block of land. That is what developers have to do to make money now. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? If the only houses available to you are 4 bedrooms. Yeah. No one's selling 3-bedroom houses anymore. No one wants apartments if you've got kids or if you've got any kind of, if you just enjoy outdoors or whatever. If you want a building on land, there's no 2-bedroom units. There's no little humble brick units like what they built in the 60s. You mentioned those earlier, 3 to a block, 4 to a block. That doesn't exist anymore. You have to get a 4-bedroom home. We have to do that because the government has made it uneconomic for builders to build anything other than the biggest damn home they can squeeze onto that block of land. Now the government turns around and says, oh, you bought more bedrooms than you needed. Yeah, of course I did. What else am I going to buy? There's nothing else on the market. Yep. If I'm a single guy going to buy a house, my options are 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms. Those are my options. And the government made it that way. And now they're going to turn around and say, you bought too many bedrooms? Come on.
Well, the whole thing is, when you look at what's available, there is nothing available, and what they're building is not fit for purpose anyway. So I talked about that little townhouse. The only people that would be willing to live in that property are people who aren't accustomed to an Australian way of life. These houses, like unconfirmed, my own opinion, are being built for the internationals. They are so small that one of the houses we looked at, there was no way you could even get a couch, not a big couch, a small 2-seater couch. There was nowhere for it to go, and I'm looking at it going, this actually isn't livable. The only people that could live in this are 4 housemates who would live in their bedroom and come down occasionally to cook a bit of food. That's it. There's no communal area.
It's flat sharing. It's flat sharing is what it is.
100%. And so I've lived in Bayside, Melbourne I moved up here 2014, right? So I have seen this area be gentrified in front of me. It started with Bentley, now Cheltenham, that whole area, Hyatt, Hampton. And when I first moved here, I've always lived in units when I've been up in Melbourne. So I've always lived in like one of those, 4 in a block, 2-bedroom, relatively nice, perfect for one person. And I'm happy with that. When I moved in with G, we wanted a bit more space, but the option was either a 3-bedroom itty-bitty house and compete with 50 other couples, or we ended up buying one of those big bloody estate houses with 5 bedrooms. We don't need it, but there was no option in between. And you pay that little bit more, and then you're not competing with all these other couples. But as in the last 10 years that I've lived up here and watched this area be gentrified, like I said, they were one house on this big block, beautiful gardens, beautiful big backyards, all being knocked down. And I don't know what you call them. I guess maybe like a condo or something. They're not quite apartments. They're 3 levels with maybe 20 like townhousey units built together, and they share a hallway essentially and an undercover car park. And there is no space. They're not fit for purpose. And yet, they'll put some nice finishings on it and be like, oh, wow, it's luxury living. When did we accept that? When did Australia vote for yes? This is the other thing that blows my mind. And, this is a sweeping statement, and maybe you can talk to this. But as a country, we have, the 6th biggest landmass? We have a whole continent. Mm-hmm. And yet we are choosing to live on top of each other in like a 50-kilometer radius, and we're buying homes for $3, $4, $5 million. It makes no sense to me. You know?
Yes. We don't have a market in very many things at all in this country. So what people confuse ownership with control. And they say, well, because you own your home privately, that therefore means it's a private market. And so if home ownership is failing, it's a failure of the private market. Well, ownership is one thing, control is another. Governments don't have to own something to control it. They can regulate it. So they can turn around and say, well, if you want to subdivide, here's the minimum block size. Also, by the way, it's going to take you 2 years to get through council, and we're going to impose all these other fees on you. We're going to make you jump through all these other hoops. If you want to build a house, a report came across my desk recently. I didn't do a video on it. There's something like 86 conditions on a normal suburban house. So a builder comes along, goes through council, jumps through all the hoops. They have 86 specific conditions applied by the council to that particular build, this single individual house that they're going to build on this block of land. And you say, well, not only does every single one of those conditions add to the construction cost because they have to monitor their own compliance, many of them add to the construction cost because they have to do more or do something in a more complicated way. Or it reduces profits because, for example, it might reduce how big the footprint can be or have some other impact like that. In addition...
Sorry, our comments are funny, so I have to share them.
Okay. In addition to that, we are all paying for all those bureaucrats that sat down and thought up all 86 of those conditions to then get applied to that private block of land. So we're all paying for it through the process, through our taxes. Then the developer is paying for it through lost profitability, and the buyer is paying for it through higher prices, and also the house just not being as optimized and as optimal as what it could be. And then the government has the hide to come along and say, well, isn't it good we have building standards in this country? And they point to things like the shoddy construction work that's being done. And they're like, well, that's why we have building standards. And I turn around and go, well, you're not doing a very good job of enforcing them, are you? Like, if government, if you're going to come along and take an enormous amount of my money and your money and everyone else's money and micromanage our lives had better be freaking amazing. You don't have, there is no justification for you sitting there saying the government will protect you from crime. Oh, but crime is out of control. No. Whoa. We gave you the money. You took all that power. You said you were going to do it. There is no room for failure. There is no room for failure in the housing market. The government has regulated this industry to within an inch of its life. If it is failing, it is not a free market failure. It is a failure of government. It is a failure of their regulation. And this is what concerns me about Claire O'Neill, the housing minister, turning around and saying, oh, we're not going to simplify the code. The symptoms of failure are all around us. This is no secret. We're all talking about the fact that the housing market is failing. It's not the private market that's failing. It is this ridiculously micromanaged, overregulated thing that we call a market that is failing. The government has acknowledged that it's failing. Claire has admitted that it's too complicated. But what's her answer? Oh, we won't make it more complicated for 4 years, we promise. Pinky swear.
Yeah. What I find fascinating about this is that there's definitely a divide between the haves and the have-not here, right? So growing up, like when I was in my 20s, I had some friends who went down the road of, saving for the house deposit and they bought the house, the traditional way, like go do that. And then there was those of us who built businesses or traveled or whatnot. And I always thought to myself, like, my brother bought early and I didn't want to have the burden of the mortgage, so I didn't. And so, I probably spent the equivalent of a house deposit traveling and whatnot. But now that I'm in my soon-to-be 40s, I look at owning a house and I go, this doesn't sound like a viable investment for me anymore. 30 years paying a mortgage and end up paying double it back, paying so much to the government. And the rules that are being set are cheating people in the future. So, for example, like talking about the taxing on the unrealized gains. I know I'm sort of jumping all over the place, but 40 years ago, was it Paul Keating bought in super, right? He promised the
very first version, yes.
Yeah, so they brought it in and they said that, that's your money. You're saving for retirement. Do that. That's a worthwhile investment. And now what are we, like 40 years later, they're turning around going, actually, you've saved too much money. We're going to take some unrealized gains. So your future self is going to get punished for making these decisions that the government's trying to sell you today. And so if we go down this road, just on this 5% thing, What a dangerous trap that you are going to
Uh-huh.
sign onto a mortgage that you couldn't afford, that you shouldn't be affording, because the government's going, oh, well, actually, you should probably go into that because that's the lowest step on the property ladder. And you're getting all these people thinking, oh, this is my chance to move into my own home. I'm going to have this big bougie home. And you're basically squashing the middle class whilst trying to force them in to upper middle class housing. It makes no sense.
And this is why it's so important. And this is going to piss a lot of people off. Poor people have to be allowed to be poor. This is what regulators don't understand that they're actually doing. What they think they're doing by renters are living in houses that aren't fit to be lived in. We're going to increase rental standards. And they think they're lifting those poor people out of houses that are a shambles, that aren't nice to live in. What they're actually doing is sending them under a bridge, right? They're living in caravans now. Then they can't. The place goes from being affordable but shabby to being unaffordable and unavailable, and they can't even have a house anymore. It's the same thing, like it or not. It's the same thing when we have things like standards on cars and things like that. Every single occupant has to have a seatbelt. Well, okay. I remember when that came in Australia. I remember I used to be in the same seatbelt with my brother in the middle, 4 of us across the back seat of a car. My family were very, very fortunate that we were able to upgrade to a van. There were 5 boys, 5 kids in the family at the time. So we upgraded to a van, but that was only really through the good graces of some people that helped us to do that. We weren't really financially able to do that ourselves. And other people that we knew weren't able to do that at all. And so the bureaucrat says we care so much about the welfare of children that we want them all to have their own seat and their own seatbelt. The practical reality is that all of a sudden there are families that can't go everywhere all at once. We would have families that would show up to church and the mum would bring some of the kids or the dad would bring some of the kids. They couldn't both come. They had one car. They couldn't afford a second car, and they couldn't afford the fine if they tried to drive somewhere. So the same thing over and over again. The government comes in and says, out of compassion, we're going to help you. We're going to lift your living standard. And essentially what they're doing is they're removing the bottom rungs, right? They're removing the bottom rungs of the ladder. They imagine that they're lifting everyone further up the ladder, but actually they're just stripping those bottom rungs away so that the gap between the people on the bottom rung that's left, the lowest available rung, and the people not on the ladder becomes so large that gap is insurmountable. And that's what's happened already with housing. If you're not already on, and they talk about this, if you're not already on the ladder, you're in trouble. Like, we need to help you to get on the ladder. Well, how about we just put the lower freaking rungs back? How about we just put affordable housing rungs back into the housing market and let the market sort it out? And it's the risk of sounding like a broken record. This is government failure.
Yeah. It's interesting. I brought this up before, but Purple Pingers has a page called Don't Rent Me or Shit Rentals or something, where people submit rentals that they've discovered. And sure, there's definitely some dodgy ones on there. And I look at that and everyone's like, oh, the landlord should be forced to pay for that. And sure. Okay. In an ideal world, everyone should live in a beautiful home that's brand new and everything's paid for and you don't have a worry in the world. The issue is, and I've seen this in Brighton, right? The whole asset rich, cash poor thing.
Oh, sure.
Brighton's a perfect example, like old school Brighton, not new Brighton, not the Golden Mile. There's parts in Brighton around North Road in that area that you look at from the outside. It's a bit of a Monet, good from far, far from good. These are intergenerational homes that have probably been in that house, that family for 100 years. It's falling into dilapidation, but because they own that big property in Brighton, their taxes would be through the roof, their rates would be through the roof, but they're not earning anymore. Most of them are, retired or whatnot, and they can't afford to fix things. So you have these big, massive houses falling into disrepair. That's kind of the case with a lot of people who bought homes a long time ago and used them as an investment strategy. So, for example, I've seen a couple of comments in the chats, people just demonizing landlords all the time. Well, no, I remember my parents doing this. Back in the early 2000s, I was moving to Warrnambool for uni. And my parents were like, well, rather than Carly renting out something, why don't we buy an investment property for us that, we'll put her in and that's going to help us for our future. And that was right around Johnny Howard talking about all the, negative gearing and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, it ended up being a terrible decision for my parents for other reasons. But now what you have is all these, like, for example, in Victoria, in renting, you have to have heating and cooling. And that sounds like, yes, you should. But basically what you're doing is you're making it harder and harder for landlords to have a property. And then what happens is when that property gets upgraded, so does the rent. And so what you're doing is pricing people out of the rental market. Now, I'm not saying that you should live in squalor, not by any stretch of the imagination. However, as much as we like to sit there and go, well, no one should be poor and no one should be this, the reality is there are people who are poor, and try as we might to lift them up. Unfortunately, some people do fall through the cracks. So when Purple Pingers goes on there and, calls out this house, it's all, like you and I would look at it and go, I wouldn't live there. But to someone else, they'd be like, that's all I can afford. I'll be stoked. Can I please have it? We're removing all of these. We're removing the incentives for people to have investment properties so that people can have rentals. And I'm a renter. I can tell you now, I'm looking right now. There is nothing. And a little part of me is stressed out about it. I'm seeing it in real time.
And this is the problem with having, public servants, bureaucrats on six-figure salaries making decisions that affect absolutely everybody. Economists refer to this concept of those who are at the margin, right? So I'm not at the margin with housing, okay? We've secured a place for my family to live. I'm not worried about us losing our house anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that no one's at the margin. That just means that I'm one of the lucky ones who's not, right? And so when you look at when you and I look at the places on the shit rentals or whatever, we go, well, I would never want to live there. Well, we have the privilege of being able to say that. There are other people who are at the margin. They're borderline. It's either that or living in a van or living under a bridge. And that's where I want to come to this comment from Amanda Trollier, who is wonderfully feeding all the comments. So thank you, Amanda, for doing that. She says, watch the videos. She's talking about Purple Pingers videos. The landlords are rorting the renters. Okay, Amanda, why are the landlords able to rort renters right now? It's because there's a lineup of 50 freaking renters desperate for every single hole in the ground. What if it was the other way around? What if building was so cheap and so fast and so easy and cheap low-cost rentals were so abundant that there were 50 landlords for every renter? Well, then the landlords would start upgrading things voluntarily just because now they're the ones who are desperate. I've got to get a renter in here. What if I put air conditioning in? Will that get me somebody? I'm losing money every single week. I don't have a person in here. If I have to spend $4,000 replacing all the carpets, but it gets me a renter, you know what? I'm going to do it. The shoe goes 100%. On the other foot. This is government failure. Government restricting supply is the reason why landlords who want to take advantage of renters can. And I don't approve of that kind of behavior, but we have to recognize this is supply and demand at work. And the government is the sole reason why supply has not kept up.
I'm going to throw like a random comment in there because, it's on brand for me. But there's a part of the struggle that it feels like we keep trying to avoid. We're trying to wrap everyone in cotton wool. And just hear me out as I formulate this thought as I'm thinking it, right? I think that Australians feel like we're entitled to this certain standard of living. And I see it all the time. Like Labor, we need to do this. We need to do more for these people. Well, or maybe they could do more for themselves. Like I remember my first rental, right? Aside from the house that my parents bought when I was in Warrnambool, when that's got sold because my parents divorced, whatever, we moved into a rental and it had one of those, gas heaters in one bedroom. It was an old Victorian, so hallway down the middle, all the bedrooms off to the side and a kitchen at the back. Now, the original kitchen still had the old cast iron stove in it with an open chimney. There was nothing stopping that air from coming down. And this is in Geelong West before it got gentrified. And can I tell you, it was warmer outside than it was in that house. And I lived in that house for 3 years. I remember it vividly. I think the rent was $310 a week. And, the landlord lived two houses up the road. And what they were doing was he was a builder himself and he'd bought these two shitty old Victorians. They were living in one. They were renovating it whilst we were living in the other one. And we became quite friendly with them. And so we go down their house and watch them renovating and they lived in it whilst they were doing it. They lived in it when they had pulled all the floorboards off and just the stumps were showing. And these are 100-year-old houses. You can imagine termites, all sorts of stuff. They were living with a camp stove, no walls, the dirt showing. I know it's probably illegal, but that's what they did to renovate that home. And what we were doing was living in the other house that they had mortgaged, and we were paying that mortgage so that they could use it for leverage of equity so that they could build the other one, right? And that was their 10-year strategy. And then I looked at, just for shits and giggles, looked at my old address a little while ago, And now that they've obviously renovated it, it's beautiful. It's like a mansion. The original house is gone, but just the front of the Victorian remains. And that's how they got ahead. You can't do that anymore. You're not allowed to do that anymore. We are disincentivizing everyone from that struggle of, hey, let's bootstrap it. Let's go do this. I've told the story of my parents before. When we moved to Australia, my parents built in Sunbury. As soon as there was walls and a roof, we moved into that house. There was no carpet. There was no blinds. We barely had I think we had the gas stove, but we didn't have an oven. And like every month, my parents would buy something new. I think we lived in that house for almost 6 years without carpet. It was just like, I don't know, was it the chipboard that they put down? We used to have those old scratchy wool blankets. They were the blinds. You can't do that now. You're legally not allowed to move into a house until it hits certain standards. And I'm not saying that to say that we should be living in squalor. What I'm saying is people live within their means and they're paying for things as they can afford them. What people are doing now has been incentivized to put everything on the never. Put it in a giant mortgage
on the credit card.
And then live on credit cards and lease your cars and use your afterpays, your Klarnas, your Hums, and everyone's living in this bubble of money that they don't actually have. And I could talk to this about, the commodification of every single part of our lives. Everyone's buying off Amazon. Everyone's just constantly buying shit from Kmart and Shein. This has to collapse at some point. And what you have is people getting very used to this cushy life because it seems relatively affordable, but all we've done is create an absolute nightmare, and those chickens are going to come home to roost.
Well, they already are, but there's an addendum to the end of the story of that landlord that you lived down the road from, because I've known a lot of people like that, and one family in particular that I have in mind from my childhood, where they moved from house to house and they were always renovating the house they were in, and once it was finished, they moved to another dump and to renovate that while they were living in it. Yes, the whole camp stove in the middle of the floorboards missing, all that stuff absolutely was true for them. And I think 3 houses at least, maybe more, but there's 3 houses that I know of. Now, they will go through all of that, creating equity, creating value, because that's what this is about. This is about, are we on average creating more value than we're consuming, or are we on average consuming more value than we're creating? And when we allow people to consume so easily, we invite them to consume more than they create, which means that their future is going to be poorer. Now, they sacrificed enormously to create. Not only were they working jobs, but then when they got home, they were working on renovations in house after house for years of their lives. Nowadays, they would be looked at and the government would say, oh, well, you haven't paid your fair share. You should pay more tax. We're going to slap you with a land tax. We're going to unrealized gains tax on your superannuation because you've got too many assets. These are the people who are now being punished for doing all the right things, for creating value. Now, what's happening is younger generations are being hit twice. Number one, they can't afford to get on the property ladder, which means they don't want to put down roots. They don't want to start families. They don't want to really embed themselves into a culture. So younger people don't have a home, literally and metaphorically. Secondly, they're looking at people who did all the right things and worked hard to get ahead, and they're being punished. So the message to them is it's too hard, and if you succeed, you'll be punished. And then we wonder why so many younger people are kind of copping out and just going, you know what, I'm not even going to bother. Now, can I bring up another comment from Amanda Trollier, my favorite little troll?
I was about to do it.
Okay, I would love to address the Airbnb elephant, Amanda, because you clearly spend far too much time on the pages of people that either agree with you or have no capacity to actually make argumentation of disagreement. If you think that this is a good little gotcha, sweetheart, you need to go back to school. Okay, what happens over and over again? People jump on Airbnb and search for the number of available Airbnbs, and hundreds of results will come up in a given area. And then they'll go and have a look at the available rentals, and a few dozen will come up in the same area. It might be 5 to 1. It might even be 10 to 1. And they go, see, the Airbnbs have taken all of the rentals. Hold that thought. If you search for an Airbnb, you will see every single Airbnb that has any availability in the next 12 months. Every single one of them is going to pop up. So when you do a search for an area and you say, show me the Airbnb, every Airbnb shows up, right? Unless you put a specified lot of dates. But if you just go, hey, Airbnb, every single one of them shows up because they've all got a date or two in that window of time in the next 12 months where they're available. So they're going to show up in the search. when you search for a rental, you don't see every single rental. You don't see all of the rentals that are occupied. You only see the ones that are available for rent right now, which, because it's a very, very high demand market, is a very, very small percentage of the market. If rentals are on average only available to rent for, let's say, a month, they're all getting snapped up within a month. And let's say renters on average move, I'm going to make the maths easy, every 4 years, which is 48 months. I'm going to call it 50 months just for the sake of easy maths. If they're only available for 1 month, so only 1 month's worth of supply will show up in a search at any given moment in time. You go, show me all the rentals available right now. It's going to be 2% of the total rentals in the area, because the other 98% are in the months where they are already occupied and they are not showing up in your search. So you search Airbnb, you see every single result. You search rentals, you get maybe 2%, maybe 4%, maybe 6% of the total rental market. So now you have to look at how many rentals there are and multiply that by 10, 20, 30, 50, depending on exactly what the ratio is. And then you start to get a clearer picture. So no, this gotcha of, oh, the Airbnbs have taken all of the rental stock. Absolute bullshit. It is something that literally kindergarten maths can clearly show to be an obvious fallacy. And Amanda, honestly, if this is the best you've got, this is why I banned you off my Facebook page. You are a bore. You don't have any good talking points. You have nothing original. All you can do is regurgitate shit that Purple Pingers said, and he was wrong when he said it, and you're doubly wrong when you repeat it.
Topher, Spicy Carls is hanging up her boots. I don't need to be Spicy Carls anymore. I'll just sit back and watch. This is fabulous.
I'm just not in the mood, honestly. People are hurting. People are hurting. This is not academic. This is not highfalutin economic theory. People are living in cars and under bridges, and people want to have arguments about fucking Airbnbs when the government refuses to reduce the thousands upon thousands of pages that are stopping builders from getting on with it. Like, can we have an adult conversation?
I want to read this comment from Amanda as well, because she said, Victorian socialists, of which Purple Pingers is one, have a policy that no party representatives are landlords. At least they walk the talk. Can I just say, I could not think of anyone less I want in government than someone who doesn't have skin in the game. I want our politicians to feel what this feels like, because the politicians have to pay land tax. You know, like whether or not they're wealthy or not, they are sometimes, not with the unrealized gains, but they are usually impacted by their own policies. And like at the end of the day, the thing that really bothers me, and I talk about this every freaking episode, is it's tall poppy. We have people like Purple Pingers, and I imagine Amanda, who whatever your real name is, sit there and go, oh, you have, therefore I don't have, therefore unfair, I deserve some of what you have. And I just told the story of my old landlord who lived in the house with the stumps showing, with all the dirt coming up from the ground. And he lived in that as long as I lived in that house in Geelong, which was 3 years. He was still in that house. And I watched him go from room to room to room, slowly building it out. So when people turn around and go, oh, landlords, you know, they've got all this money, they don't deserve it. You probably wouldn't be willing to live in a house like that. You probably wouldn't be willing to pick up a hammer after you've worked all day in your actual job, coming home at night to a freezing cold house that doesn't have heating and cooling, that doesn't have carpet, that doesn't have a flushing toilet, because you're renovating in your after hours. And every Saturday and Sunday, you're picking up the hammer again. You're building that house again. You don't get a day off. You don't get to go to the parties. You don't get to go spending money in Bali. You're working on that house. And then someone turns around in years' time and goes, you're lucky. This is what I fucking hate about Australians. That was my first swear word. Go me. I got an hour and 15 minutes into the podcast and I didn't swear. But I will die on this goddamn hill. And I'm sorry to all of you in the comments. I'm not talking to all of you specifically, but inherently, Australians are lazy people, because you had it good for too long. So.
Okay, but not according to our Prime Minister. According to our Prime Minister, and I love this hot take from the Toucher, by the way. Hot take, Amanda, is actually Purple Pingers. That's what we're going to call her from now on. Anthony Albanese says, worked hard, done all the right things, and feel like buying your first home is still just too hard. Yeah, because you fucked the housing market and we can't afford it. Yes, that is exactly how most of us feel.
Beyond what we can afford. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's about to get a whole lot easier. We've just announced that from October, you'll only need a 5% deposit to buy your first home, but you will forever be tied at the hip to the government. It'll take years off the time it takes to save a deposit. So instead of paying off someone else's mortgage, you can pay off your own. Yeah, because obviously being $9,000 a month in hock to the bank is so much better. Plus, you don't need to pay $1 in mortgage insurance. That's the thing that happens for those that don't know. My wife's a mortgage broker. That's why I know. If you go above it, it's usually about 90% loan to value ratio. So the value of the property is this. If your loan's more than about 90%, you have to take out a thing called lender's mortgage insurance. It doesn't help you. It doesn't cover you. It actually protects the bank in the event that you default. You shouldn't have to rent forever. Well, I agree with that. And if the bottom rungs of the housing ladder were put back on the ladder, then yeah, you wouldn't have to rent forever. And we're tackling housing from every angle except supply. When we're not fixing supply. We're not going to do anything about the complexity of the housing code. We're not going to actually fix the things that would actually make a substantial difference to allow housing to be built for less and faster. We're tackling it only from the angles that make us look good and meet our socialist ideologies. Like this is what passes for leadership in this country right now.
Again, you're basically getting people on the hook for the rest of their lives to have to pay for this mortgage for a house that they're going to then flip the script on and say, well, actually, since we gave you that deposit money, we're going to have to tax that back. You watch everything the government does is thinking 3 steps down the end so that they can go, well, once they get to a point where they've paid off the house and they own it, we can then tax them again, capital gains or, unrealized gains, whatever it is.
Yep.
You're stuck. You're stuck. So and then the other thing is too, sorry, with this, there's no incentive for people to downsize anymore either. Because, you made a video on this. Everything that the government's doing is basically saying, hold on to everything because the government is so volatile and they're making such stupid decisions that if you did own your big family home and you've paid it outright, why the hell would you sell it right now? It's the last thing you'd want to do.
But that's the justification that they're going to use to try and bring in land tax, to try and make it so those people that, like you said before, they're asset rich but cash flow poor. If they can just jack up the land taxes, they're going to force a lot of those people out of their homes. But this is exactly the Harry Brown quote, which I use all the time. So apologies for those that have heard it. We probably need to add it to our drinking game. Harry Brown, former US presidential candidate, said the government is good at one thing. It knows how to break your legs, hand you a crutch, and say, see, if it weren't for us, you wouldn't be able to walk. That is the housing market in a nutshell. The government broke it. The government is handing everyone a crutch or handing our first homeowners a crutch. They've got all these schemes and plans and we're fixing it. They're throwing crutches at everybody and then saying, see, Anthony Albanese here, see, look at us. If it weren't for us, you wouldn't be able to buy a house. You're the reason that they can't buy a house in the first place.
Can I just completely interrupt you with this comment?
Yes.
Jed, you're welcome. I did tell you, just like a fungus.
Yeah. It's pretty much it. And look, it does not matter what antibiotics I take. I just can't seem to get rid of her.
I grow like mold, little spores everywhere.
Black mold.
Black mold. Yeah. That's what I say to my tattle trolls. I'm just like black mold. When you think you've got it clean, there I am in the corner. But I'm going to segue. It's my get away, go away. It's my turn. Don't care about you anymore.
Hang on. It's Super Chat's turn.
Well, that's what I'm bringing up.
Okay, sorry. All right. Yeah. Okay, you go then.
Piss off. I'm in control. That's my second swear word. So, pursuant to last Wednesday, the right to feel safe cannot be a natural right. Do you mean that the way it sounds? I hope not. Because I'm reading that as in you don't have the right or you should have the right. I'm not sure.
Well, it depends on the emphasis on the word feel. Feelings are never a natural right. You don't have a natural right to have a certain feeling. But you have a right to not be assaulted. That's true. And you have a right to not endure being threatened. That's true. So yeah, like you, I'm not 100% sure where this is coming from, Tobias. If you could just send us a clarifying comment, that would be appreciated.
I have a right to not have my arm amputated by a machete. I have a right to not have 11 stab wounds in my face. I have a right to drive my car and not have a head-on collision with a bailed criminal driving 100 kilometers an hour. I would say I have a right to not feel like every time I leave my house, someone's going to try and take my life or take what I've worked for. I would say that's a pretty reasonable common sense approach. But like I said, I want to share something with you guys because finally something fucking worked. And I think it's because I cried on the podcast last week. We now have 13,683 signatures.
That is amazing, Carly. I hope you are incredibly proud because you've made that happen and you deserve to be proud.
Well, thank you. It only took me losing my absolute freaking mind on a podcast. And I think the reason I'm so passionate about this is, as I've said before 100 times, Topher's the political commentator. Like Topher, 16 years under his belt doing the political thing. I'm not that. I'm never going to be that. If you guys are expecting that from me, like I'm going to disappoint you. I am Carl's a small business owner. I'm Carl's a photographer, but I have become very passionate about this because I'm a small business owner. That's the seat I fill in this podcast. But when I see things like this is common sense to me. Like we could argue policy, Labor, Liberal, left, right, whatever you want. But this is common sense. This doesn't deserve a political nuance to it. This is common sense about if someone breaks into my house, I have every right to defend myself. I don't understand why this is even a question. So when people sit there and they go, oh, well, pardon me, policy this, policy that, I get so angry because I'm like, get the politics out of the way, and, as I said, G's mum's downstairs and she didn't actually know we got broken into. But like I said, we got away with it relatively unscathed. We didn't see them and we didn't confront them. We were told it happened because the police woke us up, right? I can't imagine what it's like to be so frustrated hearing that everyone else is having their homes broken into that now you kind of expect it. And then it does happen to you. You go and confront them because you feel like you'll be able to chase these 14-year-olds off. And then they turn around and assault you with a hammer or stab you in the face 11 times. I get frustrated because to me, that's not political. To me, what we need is to put the boot on the neck of these kids and teach them some goddamn friggin' manners. But parents these days just want to be their friends. They don't want to be their parents. The government discourages parents from being parents. And I get really fucking mad because mostly I want to be left alone to do my own thing. I don't really care what other people do. But when people are coming into my home and taking away my peace and you rattle my bucket, that's when you get spicy culls. But then when I see I got my bucket rattled and I spoke up about it and most people are like, not my problem, don't care. Oh, wait, hang on a minute. We're all being assaulted by machetes. I start going, what will it take for you to take action? And I could not believe that bloody petition hadn't even reached 10,000 in the first day. I was so angry with Victorians. And like, I'm on a rant now, so I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah,
but
just go.
We talk about this all the time. Aussies are such whingers. It makes sense. We're descendants from the British. But we'll sit here and bitch and moan all day about what the problems are and what government's doing here. But when push comes to shove, I keep telling you, we are lazy. Australians won't even do the bare minimum. They'll sit there and write their anti-comment on Facebook. They'll get all shitty in the comments. But taking the step to do the petition was too hard. What do we expect when it comes to voting good politicians in? Like, I see people in the comments every day. I'm not done. Let me go. When I see people in the comments whinging about our MPs and whinging about the decisions being made for the country, I always come back and go, what are you doing about it? Because you can do something, you just choose not to. And that thing is either going into politics yourself because you can, or going and organizing a petition, or going and strategizing and getting more people involved. But no, it's too fucking hard. And now what you have is a whole bunch of millennials and Gen Xers who are sitting around going, hang on a minute, our parents had it so much easier. Why is it so hard? Well, do you know why it's so hard, sweetheart? Because you've had your foot off the gas. You've been waiting for everything to be handed to you. And now the money's drying up and you're getting really mad about it. You're like, why is this happening to me? Well, it's happening to yourself because you're not even in control of your own bloody life. That's what pisses me off about Australians. You had life too bloody good. Now it's going to shit and you're still turning around going, oh, it's not happening to me, so it's not really my problem.
Can I make you even angrier? Just for fun. Because I told everybody I'd try. And this is going to piss off you. This is going to piss, actually, it's probably going to piss off our viewers a lot more than it's going to piss off you. We deserve this.
I said that. Piss off. That was my quote.
That's the bottom line. I've been saying this for years. We are getting the government we deserve. We are getting the government we deserve.
Comments like this, I'm sure you're just trying to stir me up, but I saw a lot of that during the recent federal election. Oh, I'm just not going to vote. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I go, okay,
well,
okay, so don't vote. Don't vote. Well, then you just revoked your right to call it out. You know, like if you're not going to vote, if you're not going to participate in the system we currently have, sure, I have a lot of issues with that system. But if you're not even going to participate, you have no right to whinge. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's that simple.
But it actually gets even worse than that, Carly. You talk about, can we not make this about politics? And you're right in terms of the partisan politics. But in the end, it does have to come down to a policy that gets passed through Parliament and implemented in our courts or by our police. So in the end, it does actually have to end up in that room, in that building, being debated. And this is why I applaud you for your petition, because now it is going to be debated. And so we hit the 10,000, or you hit the 10,000 signature threshold. You've forced it to go onto the floor of Parliament. The most interesting part of this for me is going to be to see whether Jacinta Allen shows up. Does she have the guts to be in the room when David Limbrick, who is the MP that sponsored this parliamentary petition, then gets the floor and can kick off that debate? He'll read the petition and he can kick off that debate. Will Jacinta be in the room herself, or is she too scared? That's what is going to be really interesting to me from here.
Well, forgive me if I get this incorrect, but when David gets up and reads the petition and goes to debate, they can either opt in or opt out. So there is I don't think it will be the case, pardon me, but of all the people sitting in the upper house, they can choose to decline to debate. And that's it. That's the end of the petition. That will piss me off, but that will speak to the cavalier attitude of our politicians. Now, actually, I have to tell you this. Let me pull it up 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So this just happened, and I haven't looked at my Instagram since I left the comment. So Georgie, what's her name? Animal Justice Party. She posted something today. So where is it? I bookmarked it. So I was going to say Georgie Crozer. It's not Georgie Crozer. It's
no, she's a Jono.
Georgie. Blah, 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 blah. Hang on. What's her bloody name? Georgie. Shit. Someone fill me out. Was it named Georgie? Oh,
sorry, I'm just coming back trying to find a comment that I lost. There it is.
Where? Oh, here we go. Got it. Bail save.
Don't worry, we will get to your comment. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to share this with you. Let me bring it up. Okay, this boils my blood. This is an elected MP currently serving in the Victorian government. This is Georgie Purcell from the Animal Justice Party. I'm going to read you her comment because I just want to piss off everyone right now. This week, we will debate the second round of this government's bad bail laws. They will leave those who are some of the most marginalised unable to navigate a complex legal system. And we know who will be hit the hardest. Aboriginal Victorians, who are already over 10 times more likely to be imprisoned than non-Aboriginal Victorians. They will impact women, who are often imprisoned for offences linked to family violence, poverty or trauma. And they will impact young people who will be dragged further into the criminal justice system rather than being given the chance to turn their lives around. This isn't my opinion. This is what the experts say, including the Sentencing Advisory Council, community legal centres, and the Victorian Ombudsman. Who are they funded by, Georgie? But anyway, I digress. Not to mention the coronial inquests that have unequivocally stated that our bail laws are discriminatory, unsafe, and in urgent need of reform to prevent further deaths in custody. No mention, of course, of the deaths inflicted upon the victims, because that doesn't matter. Both of the major parties will tell you that these laws are about building safer communities. If they were serious about that, they would tear up this bill and increase investment in housing, mental health care, family violence services, and community-led justice solutions. You know, the things that actually stop people falling into the legal system in the first place. And I couldn't help myself. So I've written a comment. How can you, in good... I was trying to be, respectful because, sitting MP and all. How can you, in good conscience, post this given just this weekend a bailed offender driving a stolen car killed someone whilst driving them into them head-on at 100 kilometres an hour? The state is gripped in a youth crime crisis where the offenders have been bailed over 50 times and repeatedly reoffend. Would you be saying this to the man who lost his hand to a machete attack? How tone deaf can you be? These offenders need to be jailed immediately and for once out there, put their victims ahead of the criminals. Now, this boils my blood for so many reasons. It's always the race card. We need to fix it for the Aboriginal kids. We need to fix it for the marginalized ones. No mention of the people who are getting assaulted in their own homes whilst they're minding their own business. No mention of the children who are being terrorized in their own homes by other children. No mention of the people who are having their lives destroyed because they're losing their car because it's been carjacked in Keysborough when they're on the way to the airport. No mention of the kids' lives that are being destroyed because their parents have been financially crippled because these criminals keep getting out on bail every week and every time they offend and going and looting and robbing stores, taking away from small business. No mention of that because you know what, Topher? None of us matter so long that the 0.01% are looked after and paid for by taxpayer dollars. The rest of the taxpayers be damned. That is the attitude of these fucking lefties. Sorry, that's number 3 of the podcast. These people have a bleeding heart and all they care about is that freaking diversity quota. All they care about is that virtuosity point. Look at me with my little pretty scout sash. I'm collecting all the buttons because I'm a good person. You know what, Georgie Purcell? You are bringing a child into this earth and you are bringing a child into an unsafe Victoria. Your child is more likely to be assaulted by one of these criminals than another Aboriginal child ending up in the justice system. Sorry, them's the facts.
So what's been missed there, Carly, is she's actually arguing a straw man. The thing that the claim that she's making or the claim that she's implying is that it's either bail or not bail. But no one's arguing to get rid of bail. I've never heard you say that no one should get bail. What we're saying is that the decision as to who gets bail and who doesn't is currently wrong. I support bail for first-time non-violent offenders. Okay, I support bail. The research is very, very clear. If you trap somebody in a justice system unnecessarily, they are more likely to go wrong than right. Right? First offense, non-violent. Let's get them into, let's get them, redirection. Let's get them into counseling. Let's do some of these other community-based things to try and get them to redirect their life. I'm 100% on board. If it's a violent crime, we need to be much more careful. If it's a violent crime whilst already on bail, time's up. You are remanded in custody until you face trial. But Georgie Purcell is being dishonest. She's not actually acknowledging this is a debate about when bail should be given. She's trying to get you emotionally invested in the idea that there are kids who really shouldn't be kept in the justice system. That's true. That's true. There are kids that shouldn't be kept in custody, that need other interventions. That's absolutely true. And Georgie, no one's saying anything different. You are lying by omission. You're lying by implication, sorry, that your argument is predicated on the idea that it's either bail or no bail, and no one is saying that. So this is a sitting MP being, in my opinion, deliberately dishonest in her argument by misrepresenting the counter-argument to pretend that it's some absolute binary decision, which no one is trying to imply.
This is where the conservative in me comes out. Now, I wouldn't call myself a conservative. I wouldn't say I'm that. But when it comes to crime, I am, because we have seen this time and time again. And I know the lefties will always come for me on this. They're like, it doesn't work. Punishment doesn't work. Discipline doesn't work. Okay, sure. There is always going to be someone that falls through the cracks. There is always going to be someone that it doesn't work out for. But you know what discipline does do? It helps build people up. It helps give them something to fight for or to fight against. And the more we let that soft, bleeding heart approach be the way we discipline our kids, we are only enabling them, thus forcing them into a lifetime where they don't even respect themselves. Forget about the victims for a second. We've got 14-year-olds who think they're tough going and robbing someone's home whilst they're asleep with a machete. What a cowardly thing to do. At least the fucking bikies are importing bloody coke or whatever they do. I don't know what bikies do, but and they're running a $1 billion friggin' coke empire. But no, you're going into some unassuming person's home whilst they're asleep, robbing their wallets of what? No one has cash these days. At best, you're probably getting $50 and you're going and tapping their card until it gives out. Maybe you got a couple of $100 and you think you're a big dog. You're on your Instagram post holding your fucking machete. Oh, look at me. I'm so cool. The reason we need to punish these kids is you've got to humiliate them. Nothing will work other than chipping them down a bit. The reason you do that is because no one likes being humiliated. No one likes feeling shame. Of course, it's a horrible feeling. That's why it's a very worthwhile emotion. And the problem I have with the left is they think bad emotions should be eradicated. Those emotions are there for a reason. They will help you build your character. You will help someone by giving them a tough time because they have to sink or swim. And when you have a kid who's thrown in juvie because they've done something egregious like rob someone with a machete, they're going to sit there and sulk because while the rest of their friends are out there living a life, going and doing on and forgetting about this like delinquent youth that they were living, they're still in juvie rotting. You know what's going to happen? They're going to be resentful. Other people are living, they're not. You'd give them 2 years to sit there and feel the consequences. Teach them a trade and teach them self-esteem and watch them come out the other side. Sure, there will be kids that fail. That doesn't mean it's not a good solution. And I've said this a million times and I'm going to end with this. Look at what Nayib Bukele was able to do in El Salvador. I'm going to drive this point home. You can sit here and argue these policies all day, right? Not when people's hands are being cut off by machetes. The time to argue all of these things, Georgie Purcell, was 10 years ago when only a couple of people were being hurt in their homes. Now it's every night. It is a home invasion every hour. We are seeing people literally die, getting maimed, having their limbs amputated, being stabbed in the face. I'm sorry, no more. This is where you cut your bullshit and you lay down the hammer. Throw down the hammer. This is when you get Nayib Bukele. You come in, you clean it up, and then you can worry about those policies after people who aren't involved in these crimes feel safe in their homes. I'm sorry, I will die on that hill. It is time to throw them all in jail. I don't give a shit if it's their first offense or their 50th. Put them all in jail. Let them feel the fucking consequences of their actions. I'm sorry, but I've got to go off. I've got to finish this. When I did something naughty, I fucking knew I was naughty. I knew I was naughty because when you're 14, you've watched enough movies, you've seen enough shows, you know what's good and bad. You know whether or not you're doing the right thing. So if you're choosing to go into someone's home and you end up stabbing them in the face 11 times, you cannot plead ignorance. You cannot tell me you didn't know that stabbing someone was bad. And yes, that was, it was an excuse used by a Sudanese kid a couple of years ago who then wanted to commit an even more heinous crime. That is what he said. He was too young to know the difference between stabbing someone was good or bad. So this is when you sweep it all up, throw them in there, lock them up for 2-3 years, rob them of something precious. And that is their life. You need to do that. And you can sit there and tell me I'm cruel. I don't care. I'm not going to be assaulted in my home and lose my hand at the hand of a 14-year-old wielding a machete whose parents will then go on to say, oh, they were such a good boy. They just got caught up with the wrong crowd. You know what I did when I was 14 and I did something I shouldn't have done? My parents whopped my ass. And I sat there with a welt on my butt and I was grounded for a week. I fucking knew I was wrong. I knew I'd done the wrong thing. You know what? I didn't do it again. Or I got better at hiding that I did it.
All right. So we need to get through a couple of super chats because it's been a while. Mick Braid says 1929 people. That's how the credit bubble ends and it's not too far away. Yeah, broadly speaking, I don't think it's going to be exactly 1929. I think it's going to be a little bit more Weimar Republic, wheelbarrows full of cash. It'll look a little bit different. But yes, we ultimately, we know where this goes. Then Wayne Wilkin said, my wife and I are in the 80s or back in the 80s, I think is what that means. No aircon, kerosene heater, 2-bedroom unit, no home phone, mostly secondhand furniture, had to hire a VHS, Crimea Rainbow. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Can I elaborate on that?
Sure.
There is, like, I've just done a big deep dive into nostalgia. You know how I do my Instagram videos? And I might play it in a second because it's worth looking at. I know we're talking about crime and the housing bubble, but when you look collectively right now, the world is pretty destabilized. Everyone's feeling the burden. There is this craving for nostalgia, and you're hearing people say the same thing over and over again. I miss the 90s. I miss the 80s. And this has become a massive cultural theme, which is why Y2K fashion is coming back and people are wanting to resort back to record players. Now, superficially, you could look at this and go, oh, what's old is always new again. It's just a trend. No, this is a massive shift towards analog living. People are desperate to unplug from this digital world and go and have tangibility again. And that is what this housing crisis has robbed people off. People are moving into these massive houses that they can't afford. They're over leveraged. They've got they've got a house and 2 cars all on finance. They're living on credit cards and they don't know what it's like to build from nothing. I keep saying this every freaking podcast. This is how you cultivate self-esteem. You start from the bottom, inch by inch, step by step, you start to build it back up. And then you can turn around and look and go, look where I started, look where I am. No one can take that from you. And that means that, sure, if you fall on hard times again, you've done it once, you can do it again. And that comment just really hit home for me. Because I think about my parents when my dad got made redundant. I was 14. He went from a super high paid job at Caterpillar to not having a job for 6 months. And we went from being very cushy to having to count every dollar. And it was quite sketchy for a moment. And I remember my parents having to sit us down and saying, life's going to look very different for us. You know, like all these perks and stuff. And I know everyone's going to be like, oh, poor little rich kid. I wasn't a rich kid. It's just we had good perks from my dad's company. But that was the time of the 80s. Like, do you remember? I don't know, because your dad was a pastor. Maybe you didn't have it.
Yeah.
But my dad worked for Caterpillar. And in the 80s and early 90s, they used to organize the big staff parties. And the Santa Claus would be there and all the kids. And it was like family friendly. And then Santa Claus would all give us like a toy. You know, there was a commitment from the companies to keep the families involved. Now you don't have any of that. And I believe that we really need to incentivize people to go back and live with the bare minimum and bootstrap for a little bit. I really do.
Yep. No, it's incredibly healthy. It's incredibly healthy. And, you know, there's an expression I haven't heard for a while, and it's learning the value of a dollar. It's something that I used to hear this expression all the time from parents talking about their kids, and how they were raising their kids. We've got to teach them the value of a dollar. He's learning the value of a dollar. And that would be in association usually with doing housework, doing things in order to earn pocket money. And, you know, we've talked before, my son saved for literally years in order to buy himself a Nintendo Switch. He wanted one. I said, I'll buy you your first game, but you've got to save up and buy that Nintendo Switch yourself. Here's a list of jobs you can do. Here's how much you'll get paid for each one, 50 cents for this, $1 for that. What are you going to do? And it took him years, and he saved up over $500 before he then bought a brand new Nintendo Switch himself. And I bought him his first game. Just the other day, you know, so he came to me a little while ago and he said, I want another game. So he bought himself a game as well. I want another game. I said, have you finished the ones you've got? No, I haven't. All right, we'll get to the end. I don't care if it's in easy mode. Play it all the way through until you finish the story. And then you can go and buy yourself another game. And he had enough money to buy himself another game. And it was literally, I think, 2 days ago, he came to me and said, oh, yep, I've finished it. He showed me, yep, all right, he'd played it all the way to the end on easy mode, but sure, he'd finished it. And so we went down to JB Hi-Fi. He already knew which game he wanted, and he went down and he bought another one. So he's earning the money. He's spending that money. And I'm just putting in place some parameters to make sure that he's actually getting the most out of this. And in the process, he's learning the value of a dollar. What I didn't expect was his little sister, who's 4 years younger than him. And I hadn't really realized, you know, she's at the age now where he started saving money, right? She's actually at the age where he began that process. She came to me the other week and she said, Dad, can I start earning money? And I went, oh, turns out I might be a better parent than I thought I was. You know, because that's exactly what you want your kids to be, at an age appropriate level, to be beginning to think about these things. And so we're in the process now of figuring out, well, what are my older boys' new jobs going to be so that we can take those jobs that are easier and suitable for a 5-year-old and give them to my 5-year-old daughter. And then, of course, only a couple of years on from that, we're going to be thinking about, okay, how do we make that transition again to our youngest? And they are growing up with an understanding of the value of a dollar. And I can't help but feel that there are too many families and too many parents, and especially now, I think, because a lot of it's digital and online, that phenomenon of dad bringing home the paycheck in physical cash form and it going onto the dining room table and mum and dad sorting it out into okay, well, this is for our groceries, we need that for the mortgage, and we need this and this. Kids used to see that as a part of life to a certain degree. I remember my mum, she had physical bills printed out that she would keep in a folder. And at a certain time, every 2 weeks or so, she would sit down and she would go through, check which bills were next, make sure they'd been paid. And yeah, I wasn't involved in that, but I was aware of the exercise. I was aware that was happening. Now, all of our money moves digitally. All of our bills are paid by direct debit, or it's just happening, in emails and so forth. And there isn't that same opportunity, I don't think, for kids to just pick that stuff up by osmosis. Unless we're really deliberately making sure that our kids are learning this stuff, they're not going to learn it. It isn't just kind of around them, visible to them in the same way. It's locked away inside the devices, inside the computers. And so I worry that there is actually, there's a lot of kids that are growing up to not understand the value of a dollar. And I wonder, that saying, if you think things are bad now, wait till the kids that grew up getting participation trophies are in charge, right? And I wonder now whether we've already entered that world. The politics that we're seeing right now, they're a little bit older than us, but are these the people that never really got exposed to money and they don't understand the value of a dollar and where it comes from? And they got the participation awards, all of that easy childhood now. Are these the people now? Have we already? I thought that was going to happen in another 20 years, but it feels like we're already there.
Well, no, what you have is people who came out of high school and went straight into working for Labour Light or like the Young Libs or whatever it is. They've never had real jobs. There's that young girl at the moment who got elected to federal MP. I can't remember her name. She's for the Labour Party.
She's 21 or 24?
21.
21, is she? Yeah, okay.
Her comment today, she was defending her age. She goes, I've got 21 years of life experience. And like, all of us older, I was just sitting there going, oh, honey.
Yeah, but to be fair, you remember when you were 21, like I remember I can't speak for you. I was even more insufferable than I am now. Hard to imagine. I understand that, but I was even more insufferable.
Oh, I know. That's the problem. When you're 18, you think you know everything. But I want to segue to this story, which I wanted to bring up a couple of weeks ago, and I've just found it again. So let me pull it up. We were just talking about giving kids jobs and, teaching them pocket money. And it's not just about giving them money so that they've got money. Everyone always gets caught up on the superficial thing. It's about teaching them life skills, how to budget, what money does, and that you have to work for money. These are all very valuable life skills, right? So now can you imagine a government coming on board and going, well, we're going to investigate whether or not it's safe enough for kids to have little pocket money jobs. This is what they're doing in New Zealand. I kid you not. The government is going to clarify whether farm kids are safe collecting eggs and watering plants. This is real. This is real, guys. This is where we're at. This is the government now stepping in, declaring whether or not kids are okay. So I'm going to read this to you. The government will spend 2 months consulting with farmers to clarify whether children are safe doing light chores, including collecting eggs, feeding farm animals, and watering plants. The Workplace Relation Minister, Brooke Van Velden, confirmed the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment would conduct consultation until September to see if there's any possible changes required. I shit you not. That is a real article. Right?
Can I get off the planet, please?
Okay, I'm going to say something.
Okay, no, I'll be, this is quick.
Go. Do it.
This is why I am telling everybody we need to relearn the phrase, go fuck yourself. Because that is the only appropriate, if every single farmer that is approached by those bureaucrats doing the study, the only appropriate answer is just go fuck yourself. Just, that's it.
Imagine a world where you are cocooned from the world until you're 18. Your parents do their best to shield you from all of this stuff. You never learn anything. And then at 18, they let you go off into the world with no fucking idea of what the real world is. Can you imagine how much of an assault that would be to the senses?
You'd end up like purple pingers.
Exposure. Well, you would.
You'd be purple pingers.
This is how Purple Pingers is born because, of course, like all good socialists, he comes from a trust fund. So, but yeah, I saw that article and I was just so sad because there's a couple of things here, right? My grandmother growing up had chickens and that was my favorite thing to do was to go with her and my grandmother, blessed her British cotton socks. She always had the apron on and we'd go into the chook pen and we'd put all the eggs in her apron.
Okay,
I wasn't allowed to because I would break them.
That's the OG. To have the apron with the eggs in the front pockets of the apron, that's awesome.
And so this is the thing, right? And so, you know, I make my own sourdough. The other day, G and I made butter together. This is the cutest thing. I was outraged that butter was $8. You know, that's insane to me. It's cream that's whipped, right? But we pay $8 for the privilege. And I was doing the sum in my head, and you go and buy 600 mils of cream and it's like a couple of dollars. Well, 600 mils of cream gets you about 450, maybe 500 grams of butter if you whip it. It takes like 5 minutes. Butter is the easiest thing to make. Anyway, so we bought some cream and we made butter and then we salted it and it was freaking delicious. And I had my own homemade butter on my sourdough. Now, yes, I could pay for it. Yes, I could do that. It would save me time. Do you know what's fun?
Sure.
Making your own sourdough, having that smell in your house, having that experience, that process of knowing that you made it, it's yours. You put what you wanted in there. There's no artificial shit. And also, isn't it just nice to do something and not be in front of your screen all the time? You know, what am I in a rush to do? Go and pick up my phone again and scroll for the 400th time in the day? Amanda, maybe you're just a big fat lazy cunt. Sorry.
I'm so sorry that you're so lonely. Okay, I'm sorry that your life has not worked out at all like you imagined it would. Please go be miserable somewhere else.
But just on that, like, we're robbing kids of all these small fun things to do. Like, for example, when we were young, we weren't allowed to have store-bought cakes because they were full of shit. So my mum would say, if you want a chocolate cake or if you want a biscuit, make it yourself. And so we would go in the kitchen, obviously under supervision, and we would bake some cookies. Do you know what? They are my favorite memories of my family growing up. Being in the kitchen with my mum, licking the spoon and learning to do stuff. That's back when parents would spend time with their kids. And we're de-incentivizing kids from doing anything to the point where, well, how are the kids having a relationship with their parents? I'll kid you not. Yesterday we went to lunch down at the Berwick, like a Berwick pub. And we're sitting there, we're having, Sunday lunch with G's extended family, like his brother and stuff. And we were all talking. And across from us was a family. There were 6 of them. They all had their phones. They're sitting there at a lunch, all like this. Every single one of them, all 6.
Yeah.
Just talking like this. And I thought to myself, you're out for bloody lunch and you're all sitting there going like this.
All right, sorry, are you still talking? Sorry, what? Just a sec. I'll be right with you.
This is the world we live in.
Yeah.
Right? How freaking obnoxious is it? And how sad.
No, I'm listening. Keep going.
And I dare I say these people were also insanely overweight. Now, the reason I bring out the overweight thing,
how dare you notice?
This is a modern phenomenon. You know, 40 years ago, sitting at a table in the 80s, you weren't that overweight and you didn't have your phone. You'd be on your bike. You'd be, on the Sunday, Dad and the kids would go for a bike ride. You did stuff together. And if, Amanda's going to sit there and troll me for having fun with my boyfriend making some butter. How fucking sad and tragic is your life?
So I want to go into bat in a big way for cycling. Okay. I have spent a lot of time.
Topher is now one of those wankers with the clicky-clacky shoes walking around in Lycra, and I cannot get that out of my mind.
Well, you didn't need to get it into your mind because I'm riding off-road. I'm a different kind of wanker. I'm the wanker that has the rack on the back of the car that has like all these bikes lined up, and the more mud that is on them, the more I imagine that you're impressed as you follow me driving along. I'm like, oh, look at all the mud on my bike. No, so for my son's birthday, I bought him a decent off-road bike. And I bought one for myself as well. I've never owned a decent off-road bike ever in my life. The riding I used to do when I was younger was on-road. I didn't do the racing bike thing, but I did long distance, flatties, we called them back in the day. Used to ride from Melbourne to Ocean Grove and back and do that sort of stuff. And so I've gotten, overweight. I think people have noticed over the last, I have a dad bod. I'm a dad. I'm allowed to, but I've got a dad bod. And I made the decision a while ago that I wanted to Topher, exactly. I wanted to start losing weight, but I wanted it to be a lifestyle shift, not a diet, not a program. I wanted to just shift what I'm doing. So I improved what I was eating. And that had some effect, but it wasn't as dramatic as what I would have liked. And I get really grumpy when I'm hungry. So I didn't want to go the whole portion control thing. So I'd improved the quality of what I was eating. I was eating less rubbish, but I didn't want to go the whole hunger thing. So we added bikes, and we only get out probably 3 times a week for a total across all 3 occasions of maybe 4 or 5 hours of riding a week. I'm loving it. My fitness level has improved dramatically. We've got some pretty steep hills around us, and so we have to do some pretty big climbs to get up to some interesting sort of paths, off-road sort of paths and that sort of stuff. I'm loving it, but also the joy of ticking the dad box and the exercise box at the same time. Like, I need exercise. I need to spend more time with my kids. Well, this is only one of the kids, but nevertheless, I've managed to bring both of those things into a single activity. And it is just such a pleasure. It is so nice. And so now, Winston had a massive crash a couple of weeks ago. I talked about that in the podcast. He was getting overconfident. He was getting cocky. He was riding way too fast. His jumps were getting too big. He didn't understand that he didn't know what he was doing yet. And so I had the joy of watching him crash. I say that sarcastically, of course, but I knew it was going to happen. And as far as crashes go, it was pretty much perfect. He didn't break any bones, but it was big. It scared him. It gave him a proper fright, and he ended up with scratches, and some of them are still healing. It was exactly what it needed to be. Then I sort of coached him back onto the bike, and we got him riding again, and he's done a bit of off-roading, and we've done a fair bit of on-roading and a little bit of off-roading, and he's begun to get his confidence back, but he's still, he now knows how quickly it can go wrong. So now I've booked in, and we're going to start doing off-road cycling lessons together, learning how to do jumps properly, learning how to handle banked corners and do all that stuff properly. And I'm just loving it. I'm doing father-son time and exercise at the same time. And I feel like this is like a dad hack that no one told me you could do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you now, like, this is going to be a massive wave of things. We're seeing it superficially across, people going back to film cameras, people going to the record player. But mark my words, and I'll die on this hill. We are going to see people go back to analog. And do you know what gave people the first taste of needing analog? It was during COVID, right? Because everything shut down and we were so dependent on the internet, and COVID pushed us that way. And then we realized that when things aren't available to you anymore, and you don't own them, it gets really frustrating. Yeah. So, for example, VHS or DVDs, very few people have them these days, let alone something to play them on. And yet now we're all stuck on streaming services that are putting their prices up every day. We don't own our software. We subscribe to it. So you're essentially leasing the software. So now you're on the hook for these monthly subscriptions. And so what I think people are realizing, it would have been about 10 years ago, you could still have Microsoft Word on your computer and never have to connect it to the internet. Now, everything has to go through the internet. You don't own anything anymore.
Yep. All subscriptions.
So, anyway, have we read all the super chats? Because it's getting time. It's getting to that time.
Look, we've read the super chats, but can I just say, I think this is a candidate for the comment of the day. Good people break bad lycra. You do not want to be the one behind me when I break my lycra. That is for sure.
I don't know if I won't say it.
No,
I won't.
No,
I'll be nice.
Leave it alone.
I will be nice.
All right. So thanks everybody.
I have to read our coffee thing. So over on our little coffee chat, we've got some comments here. So I'm going to read them. So over on the little QR code that I pointed to, you guys can actually send us messages. And I thought this might be fun. You guys tell me. This is new. But if you want Topher and I to speak to a specific topic, let us know ahead of time, and then, I can research it because I probably don't know much about it. But, let us know, because when Topher and I are sitting down for Wednesday's podcast, we're like, what should we talk about? I saw this article. Did you see this article? So you guys might see stuff. You guys can send us messages there, because, to be honest, I can only read 1 in every 20 messages that come up on the chat. They move so fast.
If that. Yep.
But you have been advised to do some vocal exercises off air. So la 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 la.
Well, so people need to realize that, unfortunately, my normal day-to-day life involves 3 to 4 hours of talking between my meetings with my team, debating and discussing which topics I'm going to cover, then I have to record my scripts and then, all of the back and forth with the editor. And then every week I do sort of 5 or so hours of podcasting with you as well. My voice gets a pretty big hiding every day.
I need to point out this comment. I keep getting called fat on your feed. And I realize if I'm fat, God help the rest of you.
Sorry, stop fat shaming Carl's. You're fat too, to Capanese. I think no idea.
Terrible grammar, but they're essentially saying I'm also fat. Well, shit, if I'm fat.
Well, no, but that could be directed at me. So it could be Topher, stop fat shaming Carl's. You're fat too. It could be directed at me.
It could be that.
Could go
but
either
I don't
way.
think that's what they mean.
Yeah. Oh well. All right.
I'm just making sure we've read everyone's super chats.
So we need you to go to goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com and buy more Oddcast merch. We have Oddcast merch. It's very pretty. It was designed by Carl's. I'll just put this over my face so that it looks better. Hello.
Remarkable improvement.
And go and buy some Oddcast merch. So we've got t-shirts and so forth, hoodies as well. And Carl's, are you going to put that on the screen or are you just looking at that for fun?
I am. No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
There we go. Oddcast merch. So we've got Stay on Tangent. We have Tangent Time. We have what was the one that you thought wasn't going to sell?
Carl's. Oh, this one.
Spicy
Here.
Carl's.
This is just all
the simulation. I don't understand why anyone's buying that, but honestly, that you are. So well done, you. Thank you. We appreciate that.
And then, of course, the most important one. Hang on. Where is it? Yeah. Spicy Carl's.
Spicy Carl's. All right. Loz says, love my simulation tea. There you go. Thanks, Loz. Appreciate it.
We have a super chat that we haven't answered. Where is it?
Oh, do we?
This one.
Apologies.
Anti-union, pro-nuclear. Right. Are these questions to us to where we sit? I am anti-feminism, unequivocally.
Anti-union? No, I'm not anti-union. So long as it's voluntary, I believe in voluntary association. Pro-nuclear family. I'm pro-family. Nuclear family is a subset within that. I'm actually pro-extended family. I'm very fortunate that my parents were able to move up near. So we moved out of Victoria. My parents have moved in close to where we are, and I love that. So nuclear family, sort of that 2 generations only at a time, not so much, but family, absolutely. Pro-feminism, most definitely not. I think feminism is the worst thing that ever happened to women.
Yeah, I want to caveat what I said. I'm pro the suffragettes and what the so that's what I said the right thing.
Suffragettes. Yeah.
I like that I can vote. I like that I can have a bank account. But this modern adaptation of feminism is an absolute stain on our culture, and I resent it and I hate it. And I see this in the comments too. Like I've seen a lot of this pop up in the shorts that you share. People saying Carly keeps pointing out the obvious. Yeah, I'm sure she's voting for Labor, which I get it. If people have never seen me before, they're going to make these assumptions. You know, I'm a woman, so therefore I must be voting Labor. Well, that's fine. Come watch the podcast and you'll learn something. But the other thing is too, like Carly's making the point, but she won't say the actual thing, which is that women shouldn't be in politics. And so what I hate about feminism, it's actually doing us a real big disservice because like all things that swing, it's going to overcorrect itself. And now we've got people being just blatantly sexist going that all women are dumb. And, you know, I hate that kind of thinking. It bothers me. Like it's a bit like you said last week about, you know, people think that if you're not a neo-Nazi, then you're BLM because there's nothing in between. It's the same with feminism. It's like you're either all feminism or you all need to be trad wives and, you know, be like an Afghanistan woman wearing a bloody, what do you call it, niqab or whatever it is when they've only got the eyes showing.
Yeah.
Like there is room in between all of these, right?
Is there? I don't know.
Well,
you tell me.
I'd like to think so. I think the best solution to this is meritocracy. People who elevate themselves, who put in the effort and the work, whatever that looks like for them, great. And then you fall where you fall. Some people have got more talent and you can be jealous, but that's just, you know, lucky them, good genetics. But a lot of people also have talent that never use it. So if you're willing to put in that effort, and I did see a comment before, someone said, fuck you, I've worked hard my whole life. Guys, if the comment doesn't suit you, then it probably wasn't aimed at you. So don't get offended when Kofa and I say things like, we don't know you and we don't know your situation. So don't get offended by our generalizations.
Yeah. Sadly, if the 2020s will be remembered for anything, it'll be the death of nuance. This is the thing. And the internet, unfortunately, I'm not one of these people that jumps on, social media bad. No, I don't actually think it is. I think it's tremendously good in a lot of ways. But one of the downsides has been it has made it possible for us to curate an echo chamber for ourselves in ways that have never been possible before. We've talked about that at length, so I'm not going to go into that. But the result of that has been this binary thinking. We can surround ourselves with people who agree with us, and we can other everybody else. And we don't have to be exposed or have to actually engage with the nuances and the shades of gray in the other arguments. We just shove them all over into the other basket. So Pro Engineer, yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, the rise of social networks as a primary means of communication really has killed kind of nuance and the ability to have shades of gray.
Can I add to that as well? With the amount of people that go to university to get their useless arts degrees and the incentive of putting people into further education, now people like to say, I've done my research, I've looked at, the research, and what they failed to declare is who actually funded the research. And now that I'm back doing the research myself, I can tell you now, it's very easy to read the biases in these papers. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a peer-reviewed study. This was a journal article that I read, and it must be right. I'm like, who funded it? Oh, that's right, the Gates Foundation. Cool.
Yeah. So I coined a phrase, not that it was an original phrase to the human language, but it became my catchphrase very early in my work, that you don't know the story until you know the numbers behind the numbers. So generally the headline and the article just has the numbers. The report, this study includes the numbers behind the numbers. And until you understand those, you don't understand the story. Because so often when you actually get into the numbers behind the numbers, and this is where, for example, you might, a study of 2,000 people found this thing. Okay, how were those 2,000 people decided? If they were, 2,000 random people in a representative sample of the population who were observed as a before and after, that's a very different study to 2,000 people who had X happen to them and were therefore included in the study because of X, or who volunteered to jump into the study because they wanted to, like polling, for example. So they do opinion polling in politics. Well, there is a bias already because certain demographics are more likely to pick up the phone than others, are more likely to have the time and say, yes, dearie, I'll have a chat with you about my politics, versus, no, I'm busy, I'm at work. Or versus, younger people these days, it's like, oh, someone's calling me, throw the phone away. They can't handle a phone conversation. So you've got to understand what are the numbers behind the numbers? What were the methodologies behind it? Even good faith studies, forgetting the funding side of things, forgetting the biases that can be deliberately introduced. Even good faith studies can fail hard because the methodology is wrong. Self-selection bias becomes a problem, or various other unseen factors. So until you know the numbers behind the numbers, you don't understand the headlines. And in today, so this is the second thing with social media. So we talked about echo chambers, but everything's so fast now. No one is willing to spend the time to actually learn the numbers behind the numbers. They just want the clickbait headline, which is why we see nonsense in news media, like what I started tonight's show with, where literally they made a whole news article out of talking about me and what I said about a book. Like, this is nuts. But actually, all they wanted was a headline and a picture, and to be able to file that and say, oh, I've done my column inches today. I've done my work.
Well, not only that, something else that I've noticed in the comments is a lot of people going, oh, this is too long. Your videos are too long. I'm not going to watch this. It's too hard. I'm like, I get it. Like, you don't want to watch a 3-hour podcast, but like if a 10-minute video is too much for you, then I would argue like you need to work on your attention span, because you can't. This is the problem. We've conditioned people to believe in the clickbaits, the quick headings, and you don't get the context. And I also have seen a real push towards long form content. Like, a lot of people told us when we first started that you and I wouldn't be successful because our podcasts were too long. Our podcasts have only gotten longer and our numbers are going up. I think actually people appreciate seeing a conversation where you're sort of teasing it out. It's not like, well, I'm an expert, here's all my points. Okay, I'm an expert, here's all my points, done. Like, this is what a conversation looks like. And I think we forget that,
Yeah, very much so. All right, so we need to call this because we're over 2 hours. But I just want to read I just want to read a quick headline here out of 7 News. The Albanese government has agreed to freeze the national code that puts restrictions on housing construction in Australia as part of a plan to spark the stalled home building sector. It's the first major policy move to come from this weekend's economic roundtable. Again, they're freezing the code to spark the stalled sector. No, you have to repeal it. You have to wind it back. You can't just freeze it in place at its current level. This isn't going to work. This is just nonsense.
Just a subtle comment there. Thanks, Sen 09.
Time.
No, it says tea time, G. That's his cue.
Tea time. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Get
Nice work. All right. I get it now. I get it.
The housing thing, I think Australians, I don't want to say it, but I think we have to suffer more because, like I said, Labor won in a landslide. People keep hearing free and go, oh, I want free. This is the consequence to that. Yeah, Amanda. Sorry, G. I love you.
So, Amanda, you're the good Amanda. All right. We like you. Are you there? No, you are there. Okay.
Oh, thanks, Richard.
You literally, you were so still, Carly. It wasn't until your eyeballs moved inside your head that I realized that the image hadn't frozen. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it.
Are you sick again? Are you going to come to my house sick again?
It's a dry cough because I keep breathing the black mold that is you, it turns out. You're to blame.
Sorry.
All right. G-Man, can you organize for Carly to make some sourdough in time for me to eat it while I'm at the house? Because what she does normally is she has it in the oven so I can smell it while I'm in the house. And then she's like, oh, it'll be ready for G when he gets home from work. No, G, not good enough. Not good enough.
Well, you're in luck because I'm making 2 loaves for G's mum to take up north with her. So I will make a loaf just for you to take home to Eddie and the kids.
No, I'll eat it in the car on the way.
I'll even give you some Carl's J Soda butter. Do not read that any other way than what I meant.
Okay, no. But I have to say, like, that is like homemade sourdough.
She just fired back at you. She's like, no, because you'll eat the whole bloody thing.
Yeah, I will. That you're not wrong. All right, we got to wind this up. We'll see you on Wednesday for our actual main podcast. Believe it or not, this is just the fun thing we do on a Monday night. The real podcast happens on Wednesday. Carls, any last words?
This was a good one. I wasn't upset and I didn't cry, and I don't feel like there's any ugly faces I pulled that you can use as a thumbnail. So go me. And
I will find them.
I think I only swore a handful of times. I may have thrown a couple of F-bombs at the end, but I think for the most part I was on good, I was good.
Look, you did pretty well. I swore a few times too. So glass houses throwing stones, or grass houses stowing thrones. I can't, anyway, whatever it is, I can't really talk because I also swore a little bit this episode. All right.
Well, guys, we'll go. Goodbye.
Let's get out of here. Bye.
Bye.